I'm sorry for a slightly later start, but it looks like there's Twitter problems. Now, Twitter obviously will not mean, um, Twitter doesn't mean that I can't stream, but it does mean that I can't reach out to all of you. So let's just take a minute and see whether or not I've got my encoding options. And if I do, then we're going to just jump on with the rest of the game. I kind of need to need to appreciate that most people don't really know me through Twitter and stuff like that. Most of you know me because you get notifications. So I'll admit it sucks a little bit because it would be really nice to inform people that the stream's going. But my God, why are there not more people playing this game right now? Fascinating. I'm gonna need to think about that. Anyways, it looks like the stream's working. It looks like I've got my encoding options. I'm gonna leave my browser on in the background to see. I leave my browser on in the background to see whether or not there are the thing gets working again. I'm sorry, it's really hard to do more than one thing. Excuse me, typing wise. So tell you what, I'll at least let you hear the music. By the way, I noticed there's a broadcaster. I love it when developers do this for people, and I sadly don't know this broadcaster, but I think it's presumably it's someone that Kit Fox knows. I think it's Wallstormer. Anyways, they are streaming in front of about 350 people right now, which is nice. It's once upon a time that used to be able to get you on the front page of Twitch or not, of Steam, not Twitch. It's a little harder now, as I'm sure some of you have noticed. I think right now you'd have to dethrone Company of Heroes. It's at 34,000. And if you want to break the top 6, you are competing with Nocia with 1,610. Now, we've beaten that, but that is very much in part... that is very much due to the marketing efforts on the part of the game that I was broadcasting, not my... my green eyes and sexual charisma. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm trying to get the stream up. I just saw Wallstormer broadcasting during it. Wallstormer, if you get a chance to hear this, congratulations, well done. And if you don't, hey, Johnny. Thank you very much. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to prep just a tweet for whenever this nonsense gets fixed. I'm going to leave you with the creepy harpsichord music. And we'll carry on. So I'll consider this in my 10-minute warm-up and whatnot. I figure if this is a VOD, most of you have already left. 3 minutes is a long time to wait for someone to start making sense. But we will endure. All right. So, okay, here's what I would have said if I had not had Twitter problems. Well, beside thank you, Johnny Big Time, You are a gentleman and a scholar. This has been a weird week for some of you who are fans of the cast, or maybe not fans, but have been wanting to check out my stuff. So normally it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting between 7 to 8, trying to start as early to 7 as possible. I don't know if the game's too loud, by the way. Let me know and I can pull back on the volume a little bit. But yeah, basically... starting around 7 is probably the safest of the... It's a tiny bit loud. Okay. That will hopefully fix things. And I think I might have finally found like a good generic level. But yeah, so the challenge that this week had was on... Monday was a holiday. And I do want to start trying to take care of myself in the sense of taking breaks when I... you can let me know if that's better, Johnny. It's probably a quieter moment of the music, but hopefully that fixes it. And I don't seem like I'm sarcastic and not actually changing anything. I did make a small adjustment. But yeah, so on Monday there was a holiday. On Wednesday there was the Dirty Rectangles game developers meetup. And so that meant on Monday and Wednesday I didn't stream. And then, of course, there's the vodcast on Tuesday. But on for the vodcast, it did not change much. I don't think it's too bad. Okay, we can work this out too. Because there's a change to this game since I last played it, which I'm very interested in. It is so frustrating to see just my feed completely running up with new tweets as I'm trying to say, "Hey, we're streaming Lucifer Within Us. Come in and watch." But I'll hit this down a little bit lower. But yeah, so Monday and Wednesday are normally live broadcasts for me on Twitter. I actually had some technical problems, so I don't know what's going on with my PC lately, but it seems like there's some kind of a memory leak. Firefox seemed to be the culprit, but it isn't actually doing like this particular one seemed to happen when I had Firefox closed. But in any case, I can only keep the machine open for so long before it takes up, all available memory and everything stops running. So that happened, and so if anybody wrote something in the first hour or so of that broadcast, I didn't get a chance to read it because I was out. So overall, I've not been there for people, and if you have been wondering why that is, most of it was planned, but obviously it's not the easiest thing in the world to communicate that stuff. My Twitter presence isn't really there. My Discord is fairly light, and I'm still trying to find the best way to communicate to people in the way that they want to be communicated to. So those are my excuses. I am, however, doing a special stream for today with Lucifer Within Us, and this is because I was given a press key for this game from Kitfox Games, but more than that, and some of you already know this from Fit for a King. In fact, last year, I think, marks the 1-year anniversary that I've been in touch with Kitfox about this sort of stuff. I've said this a couple of times before. The community manager for Kitfox Games, a woman named Victoria Tran, is first of all, seems superhuman in terms of their ability to be everywhere and do everything. But I've said this before, and I think it bears repeating. The individual interactions with Victoria have been impossibly pleasant, and it's probably been one of the clearest cases where I've been overwhelmed on stuff, and I've specifically wanted to make the effort to cover a game because interactions wind up being so pleasant. And so this kind of led me down a rabbit hole in terms of seeing, it's like, well, what's going on with this Kitfox company? I'd liked Moon Hunters. I was aware of them. It was super appealing that it was Canadian and all that, but it's like, okay, so let's see what's going into this magic here. And she's given a number of talks in terms of sort of designing communities around kindness and all of that. It's one of these examples here where it's someone who's very much sort of lived this, I don't want to say marketing philosophy, because that sort of makes it seem like, someone's putting on airs or something like that. But it's interesting to me because this is a very clear point. I'm maybe not exactly the kind of whale that a marketing focused individual wants to reel in. But it is fair to say that I went from a point where I'm like, I've been given too many games and I have to turn people down, to being given this surreal, Henry VIII simulator in pixel art. Knowing nothing about Ultima, which is the game that inspired it, and actually probably not that much about Henry VIII, if I'm totally honest, and saying, I really want to do this. Actually, the other game would have been 6 Ages, which I want to return to. But the reason why I point this out is that it's interesting to see me going from, I have too many things to do, I can't possibly get this done on, in any decent time, and that's usually why I turn down keys. I'm getting a little bit better at catching up with those things. But it interested me, the fact that, the Kit Fox emails were the ones where I was like, it's like, I don't just want to do this, like, I'm going to make the time. And then, sort of going down that rabbit hole, as I said, it was a chance for me to see how it is something that this person lives. And so obviously these are the kinds of companies I want to lend a hand to if I can. But more importantly, I'm obviously very grateful that I've now been able to do a third game. But with that in mind, I clearly have a very high opinion of Kit Fox, and I was given this key for free. And so if you're making a purchase decision on this, it is probably better that you have those interests disclosed up front, rather than suddenly finding out later on. But I'm so confident that this game is going to be awesome that it won't matter. Actually, speaking of which, I probably should have let the credits run while I was doing that. I don't know if it's going to be a little slow, but I think that was it. Oh, actually, no. One other thing to say about Kit Fox. I can't say exactly what it is yet, but I did get in touch with them, and there's something which I have had some difficulty getting people to do some, get some take up for. It's a case of something that I know how to do reasonably well, but people, quite understandably, maybe want to keep things to themselves. Oh yes, the Canadian meat. Okay, this was worth it for that reason alone. But yeah, the Kit Fox actually gave me a shot on something that I've been trying to get people to pay attention to, or to let me take a crack at for a while, and I think the results are pretty cool. So when I can share that, I will be sure to post that. But maybe it's an example of a case where it's not just streaming anymore. It seems to be just overall a very cool company, and a Canadian one, and one that is, very much focused on human beings who play and who work there, as opposed to some of the stuff we might be hearing about a certain cyberpunk game coming out right now. I don't know. I'm still not excited by it. Anyways, I am extending my time, so I also just spilled coffee on myself like an idiot. So one more try with the tweet. All right. A lot of I'm sorry to blame it on this stuff, but I have been really thrown off by the fact that I can't communicate out to people. But there are some bodies here, so let's do a new game. The Two Brothers case. 100 years without murder, 100 years without demonic possession, then this. I'm Sister Ada, exorcist and investigator. This is my testament to the massacre at St. Walpurgia's Abbey. It is truth. Do not believe the lies of my accusers. St. Walpurgia's Abbey, Cybernetics Workshop.
Sister Ada, welcome.
All right. Hopefully I'm getting the feeling it might be a little quiet now, but hopefully that'll work for people.
I am Virgil, Chief Inquisitor at St. Walpurga's Abbey. We may be in need of your talents as an exorcist. You can survey the evidence yourself, but I think you will agree.
Has there truly been a murder?
It seems so. A respected priestess, Mother Miriam, passed this morning under suspicious circumstances.
Hey, Nick. 4,359th of their name.
A demon may be present. Here, even now. Possessing someone.
What happened, exactly?
Mother Miriam was only recently appointed as successor to Abbot Gregory. This morning, she came to the workshop to receive her coronet of office.
Something went wrong with the installation.
Yes, to put it mildly, the coronet oversurged, killing Mother Miriam. Brace yourself for the sight.
There wasn't somebody putting jam on scones back there?
Then
I'm out.
the workshop operators, Gideon and Reuben, are the prime suspects. They are brothers, right?
Yes, but it's highly out of character for Gideon or Reuben to kill someone. Even so, they were the only ones present when Mother Miriam died.
Daemons nurture our sinful desires into unthinkable actions, Virgil. One of the brothers has surely been seduced by a daemon. Whichever it is, I will unmask his lies and cast out the daemon within him.
May Einsoff's will be done. Amen.
To exorcise a daemon, we must uncover 4 things. First, the suspect. We must identify which sinner is possessed by a daemon. Second, the opportunity. When exactly was the murder committed? We can pinpoint the opportunity by analyzing each suspect's testimonies. Third, the means by which the murder has been committed. The means can be found among the physical evidence at the scene of the incident. Fourth, the motive of the murderer, which can be found in their inner world, their sanctum. The motive will tell us which daemon possesses the sinner.
Very well. Let us begin our holy work.
It's always tricky. So I did not know that. I also don't think there was somebody here in the stairs before. So for those of you who watch the broadcasts frequently, you'll know that I actually did the demo for this. I don't know if the demo is still around or if you have to buy the game now. Do keep in mind, like, we do live in the age of the 2-hour refund window, so it's kind of interesting. Like, demos have been coming back, it seems like, and both in terms of if you look at the way that developers talk about games, and just if you look as a gamer, there's a lot more demos to play. And it's really funny because it's the sort of trend that you would imagine doesn't happen. Hey, Fuchsia. I was actually thinking that this was a suicide. But we'll figure it out. But yeah, so we've actually done this before when the first demo came out, which apparently had a few problems. So we'll carry on. The thing that I do find kind of funny, though, is I'm used to playing games without the dialogue, and I always imagine that dialogue's kind of expensive to add in, so I always like reading out the characters, and then now I just kind of feel like a bit of an idiot sitting there waiting for people to stop talking, which I guess is what most people experience when they're watching me play a game. All right, Mother Miriam, victim. Newly appointed voice of Einsoff, who is scheduled to receive an ether coronet implant in the workshop. Oh, yes, also, hearing the dialogue being read aloud also indicates how I don't know how to pronounce certain things. All right. Have you examined the explosion remains? If any component of the coronet is missing, that would suggest that the incident was a sabotage. Let's talk with...
This is madness! I will not suffer this injustice! I am Gideon the Grand, the greatest cybernetician of our generation. I am blessed. I don't know what went wrong this morning. My hands are guided by the divine.
I see only gaudy trinkets here. Mother Miriam died by your hands. Is that not so?
No, why would I want to harm her? Mother Miriam was my patron. She loved me like a son. I did nothing wrong. The consecration chamber must have been compromised. Sister Ada, he is here to seek the truth, Gideon. You have nothing to fear if you are innocent. Please hear Gideon's testimony, Sister Ada, and judge for yourself if he speaks true. Testimony of a suspect is divided into events. You can access detailed descriptions of events by hovering over them. You can manipulate the timeline marker to navigate any moment in the testimony. Did you not see me play this before, Johnny Victor? I'm trying not to do this like L.A. Noire, where I did the most ridiculous accusations I could possibly manage. You can manipulate the timeline marker to navigate any moment in the testimony. Let's listen to what Gideon has to say. Actually, my easy answer for this too. Thank you very much for the bit, Nick. Is that? Oh, it's the rip. Sorry, I thought that was one of Octavian's little emotes there. I wanted to. Well, I'll wait for more recorded dialogue from Ada. So let's listen to what he has to say.
Mother Miriam came to me for her consecration ceremony. I've performed this many times before, so I was confident. To prepare for the ceremony, I ordered Reuben to take Mother Miriam to the consecration chamber. Meanwhile, I adjusted the cornet's amplifier.
Oh, wait a second. Let's re-examine what he said about Miriam's arrival.
Mother Miriam came to me for her consecration.
Interesting. Gideon does not mention Reuben being present while greeting Mother Miriam. I wonder if they intend for you to talk to Reuben first. Let's ask Miriam, select Miriam's arrival and ask Gideon about it. Good. I should remember that I can ask a suspect about my statement in a testimony. Were you alone when greeting Mother Miriam? Yes, I'm certain I was alone then. He insists that he was alone. I wonder if Reuben will corroborate this. For now, let's finish hearing the rest of his testimony. Also, order Reuben is usually what I do for lunch.
For the ceremony, I ordered Reuben to take Mother Miriam to the consecration chamber. Meanwhile, I adjusted the cornet's amplification at my work table, and then placed it on Mother Miriam's head. We began by closing our eyes and praying together to Ein Sof. I thought I heard the chamber open, but didn't think much of it. Then I activated the consecration chamber and began the ceremony itself. The aether output was within safe ranges.
I've heard enough. Let's leave him for now. All right. So yeah, I don't mean to make too many comparisons to it, but I kind of feel like if you've played L.A. Noire, this feels very similar. One huge improvement over L.A. Noire, in my opinion, is that like L.A. Noire is really really interesting because they put a lot of effort into the facial expressions and whatnot. And obviously everybody's seen those videos online where maybe it doesn't quite work as intended. But what I really like about Lucifer Within Us is that it's a little bit more focused on the investigation. So while you still kind of have the same sort of actions that you can take, you can point out contradictions, you can say whether or not you think someone is lying. For some reason, this game has done a slightly better job, in my view at least, of sort of giving you the impression that you're going in and sort of investigating an issue, and that the process of sort of working out the testimony, seeing what's happened, recreating it in your mind, works for me. I also think the setting's really interesting. So I've been trying not to... The biggest problem that I have is that I'm picking up what I suspect are probably intentional references. Oh yeah, L.A. Noire is a very good game. Oh, hello. Sorry, just saw. Oh, sweet. Okay. Just got an email. Obviously these. So the world is really interesting. The different names seem to be references. So Virgil, the famous Roman poet, but also the figure who led Dante through the Divine Comedy. I guess up to paradise, and then it's Beatrice who sends him through paradise. You've got, I think Reuben and Gideon are some of Jacob's brothers, or Jacob's sons, Joseph's brothers. So if you like Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, references to that. I am kind of interested in the name of the deity Ein Sof, because you've got, so if you know like the etymology of philosophy, love of knowledge, even the term like sophist, sophisticated, all of that's related to knowledge. But I also sort of like that you have the first little sound of software. I kind of wonder if that's a conscious choice or if I'm just digging in a little bit deeper. The problem is, of course, is that it takes place in a monastery, so it's completely appropriate that people have religious names. I don't have any like major significance to it, because like obviously Devil May Cry also has references to Dante's Inferno, but beyond the presence of those names, it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. And the Abbey name. So yeah, as it is, like this is the biggest a game like this actually creates one of the biggest challenges for streaming, because it's a bunch of stuff that I notice and I see, and it's a very clear reference, but I'm not, especially at the start, I'm never able to pull out any significant meaning out of it. And sometimes it's just enough to have like a cool name, right? Like every character named Alice does not need to refer to the Lewis Carroll book. But it's also hard not to see names like that and see the reference. So this in the background. So I've got two levels of the investigation game going on for me now. One, which is to solve the murder mystery, but number two, in the background, to just see if there's little influences or little references that are being made that I can sort of put two and two together with.
An exorcist? Surely there are no demons here, though. This was an accident, wasn't it?
Also, too, actually, so the other thing about the setting, which beyond the question of, so it's just a cool idea. But there is something really interesting with this idea. Obviously, it's very technological. I actually think so. The creative director on this one, I think it's Jong-woo Kim, did a game which I sadly haven't played called The Shrouded Isle. So this definitely seems to be well within, their wheelhouse. So it actually kind of makes me want to go back and try The Shrouded Isle. Sorry, I lost the thread. Yeah. The idea of demons. So for those of you less familiar, I mean, this is a challenge on Twitch. This is the challenge whenever you say technical stuff on a stream. There's always one guy who like really wants you to know the exact definition. every once in a while I'll get it on my comments, and I'm like, I feel like someone really needed to get that off their chest, so I'm not gonna comment on it. But so again, like the thing is, when you're streaming, people tend to be a little more technically savvy, but when you TA, you speak to the whole audience, not just the people who are, who already did all the required reading beforehand. So a daemon in technologically is basically sort of a background process that's running. So for instance, I've had a couple of situations where I've sort of wanted to write a little program in the background just to automate a few things that aren't particularly troublesome for me, but they kind of need to happen somewhat regularly and get them running. So there's nothing like super sophisticated about it. It just happens to be the name for the software that's in it. But there is something kind of neat about the implication here, right? Which is, you've got Total War Troy, which has a really interesting view on the presence of divinity in the Iliad. And it opens with the question, are we mere playthings for the gods, or are they simply an excuse for the decisions that we've already made? And then we take it to here. Obviously, there's no direct relation between these two games. But think for a minute here about the idea of the demon in terms of a software demon that is still resulting in us doing bad things. Are demons temptations? Are they, do you go Freudian and say that they're the id taking control? And in this particular case here, if we want to take sort of the look at software, you can have sort of this idea of the underlying process, which is, and again, one of two things that you can go with it, which is either it's malware, it's something that's kind of come in and forced you to do something that you wouldn't normally have done. But what I think is probably a little bit closer to the way that the game wants us to think about it, and I think probably a little bit closer to the way people behave, which is you can have your standard operations as a person, your wishes, your desires. It's fine to be ambitious. It's fine to want things. It's fine to try and do things and sort of have feelings of, sort of justice or righteousness. But clearly, if they go too far in a certain direction, they cease to be virtues and instead become problems. And so you can almost get it, like, what I think what interests me about this is that you have exorcisms combined with almost kind of this iRobot laws of robotics, right? Where you have the way that we behave, sin winds up becoming the the manipulation of our programming, the manipulation of our intentions, and it's the demons are taking advantage of individual traits which in normal circumstances might be good, but pushed to a certain extreme, they go on. So again, this is all of this is setting. You don't need to do a cool little environment. You don't need to do the the wonderful art style for this to get those ideas across. But boy, it helps. Like, this is already a world I kind of want to live in and think a little bit about what comes up. Today in Philosophy 101, yeah, sin is just emergent behavior. Just let it happen. How you doing, Prometheus?
If Gideon is possessed, that would mean he did it on purpose. Horrible.
Yeah, and actually, for those of you saying Intro to Philosophy 101, I've actually been reading Republic. So I've never read the Republic start to finish. I've always read it in fragments. I'm on book 7 now, where that's the one where the allegory of the cave comes through. But I don't know. I still kind of I think it's the more I do math, the more I become a Platonist, or maybe Pythagorean by way of Plato. But I don't know. There is still something to that idea. It's one I want to believe, even though I don't think it fully sustains. But the idea that people don't do wrong intentionally; they do it through, They kind of do it through lack of knowledge. It's not one that I can really sort of sustain on any like full progress, but or like full examination. But it's still kind of like a default position I wind up holding.
You must be the elder brother.
I see. Your name?
Yes, my name is Ruben Garamond. I am responsible for the engineering and design of our implants.
How did Mother Miriam die, exactly?
Well, maybe somebody put something in her tea.
It was a completely preventable accident. Mother Miriam died because Gideon deliberately flouted the ceremonial guidelines for his own glory. Gideon may be my flesh and blood, but he must take responsibility for his negligence.
Let us hear what Reuben has to say. Yeah, for me, this is the challenge. I think everybody's going to have at least one Reuben joke, but I've already made mine with the order Reuben. Keep in mind that Reuben's testimony may differ greatly. Oh, I think that's from the demo too. I think it's differ greatly from Gideon's version of events. If an event is corroborated by another suspect's testimony, it will be marked as verified on the timeline. Let's listen to what Reuben has to say.
Mother Miriam came to us to receive a consecration ceremony, but she wanted something extravagant. Gideon suggested setting the coronet to have maximum ether output. I warned him that doing so is highly dangerous. Gideon convinced her to move forward with the ceremony anyway. Since he was going to handle everything, I went back to my tasks.
This part of his testimony is rather long and repetitive. Let's move ahead to the next section. Try to stop ceremony.
When Gideon activated the consecration,
Good, I was growing
chamber,
impatient. Now
I
let's observe the
immediately
rest.
felt something was wrong. I begged Gideon to stop, but he didn't listen.
I've heard enough. Let's leave him for now. Actually, they added the. I like the little
This was no
particles.
accident. It's all Gideon's fault. Then the unthinkable happened. When Gideon activated the consecration chamber, I immediately felt something was wrong.
I feel like there's some.
Gideon to stop, but he didn't listen.
I feel like there's probably a GIF I can get out of here. It's like when I saw the key for Lucifer within us in my email box.
Then the unthinkable happened.
Now that we've heard the testimony from each suspect, let's think carefully. There's only one truth to the chain of events of this morning, and I doubt that either brother has told it to us. Damn you, Twitter. So I must rely on Ainsoft's greatest gifts to us, our minds. There are three ways we should consider what we've discovered. The first way is deduction, since there can only be one truth. If two things don't align, one or both of them are false. If Gideon and Reuben do not agree on something, someone is lying. Or if what they say does not match the evidence I find, then they must be lying. Second is induction. I should base my theory based on what I discover. If my theory does not align with any of the testimonies or evidence that I find, then I should discard it. If two theories are both possible, then I should prefer the one that has more information that supports it. That said, induction alone is usually not enough. Finally, abduction. I must hypothesize what could have happened, filling gaps in information with my imagination. This is the fastest and most powerful way of thinking, but also the most fraught. I should engage in each of the three ways in order to uncover the truth. So obviously, I know Fuchsia was doing what I did in L.A. Noire, which is to do as much abduction as possible. But Jenison Account, hey man, it's been a long time since I followed you. I don't remember what you were playing at the time, but I haven't checked you in a while, probably a few years at least. I hope you got something cool going on. You may have followed me because of Cultist Simulator, which is not similar. I mean, in terms of material, this definitely has more than a few, I don't know, gothy things going on inside of it. I was a graduate student a few years ago, that's right. I've since graduated, and I'm doing, I'm working now, but still streaming. I mean, if you came in during when I was doing one of the econometric streams, I haven't done one of those in a while. Yeah, I mean, I don't like defaulting to Cultism, but the fact of the matter, like, it's very clear that most people know me from that. So it's, it's just as easy for me to start with that and move on. And then the other one was Crusader Kings for a while, but what is this? The Devil's Herb. I knew something nefarious was afoot. The abbey must be purified of its scent. I should dispose of any that I find. No, actually. Oh yeah, so sorry. I was carrying. I don't know offhand, Janice and Counting. I think if I mouse over your name, I think this is true for everyone. It says you've been following since January 3rd, 2016. So, sorry, I was going to say, oh yeah, so LA Noire, basically I went abduction crazy. I'm going to try and avoid doing that, at least for the first mission, just because I have actually done this before, but it's not a bad opportunity to just sort of step through the game again. Also, because the demo did start us before, the demo did end before we could actually do a formal accusation. So, sorry, the info's going on. That's all good. I always say to people, I don't take attendance. And obviously I have lots of different things that I do. So streaming on a Thursday. But yes, I was gonna tweet out AngryCat365, but it looks like, oh, hey, my tweet actually finally went through. Thank the maker. But yeah, this came out today. So actually, yeah, sorry guys, I should have done this a lot sooner. Obviously I was given the key from Kitfox. We are going to get onto the gameplay in a little while, but now that I'm not constantly searching for Twitter stuff, this is where you can buy it. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that, but obviously I was given a key from the developer, and it's pretty clear from the earlier comment, I have a very high opinion of the team behind this. But it is 10% off right now. So normally it's $21.99 Canadian. At 10% off, it's $19.79, which I think is a very fair price for what I've played of the game from the demo. It does not appear that the demo is still on. It does not appear that the demo is still on the page. But again, you've got 2 hours before you can. It's a 2-hour window. I'm pretty sure you'll figure out whether or not you like it by then. But yeah, so obviously we live at actually, here's another thing that you guys might find helpful. I'm obviously not going to say this for. I'm not going to say this for like as certain. I don't have any like deep knowledge about how they're going to work with this game, but there does seem to be a somewhat regular pattern in terms of how Kitfox does their discounts. So when you take a look at the Shrouded Isle, that was released back in August of 2017. The first discount after release was 15%, and then it went to the 20% range basically after a year of release. And then it looks like it was 2018. This is all from SteamDB. It looks like it was basically 2018 and 19 once you started getting to some of like the deeper discounts, like the 40%, the 50% discounts. So essentially you're looking at about 2 years if you're looking for the deep discounts, if Shrouded Isle is any indication. If you're waiting, if your thing is like, well, I'll maybe wait till it's $20 or whatever. It's like that one was between, I guess, August to October. Yeah, okay, so that was about a quarter. But I mean, essentially what you're looking at here is about a $2 difference on that. So again, you guys are going to have to decide. Oh, I remember you were pretty chill. I was in high school at the time. Just a big thanks for the content. Definitely deserve. Thank you very much, Jansen Accounting. Sorry I'm doing the sales pitch right now, but and how you doing, Starbright Knight? But yeah, it does. So there's a couple reasons why I want to say this. Number one, Kitfox Games is a small developer. So it's nice to be able to give some support to developers like that. I also think it's helpful to frame the discounts that you're getting in sort of a context. So right now you can get the 10% off, and you should probably have some realistic ideas about what this game costs, what it's worth, and when you're going to be getting it at certain price points. Because obviously some people do wait. This has maybe been a little bit of research I've been doing actually lately in terms of the time between someone showing interest in a game and buying a game. So it's up to the developers to make a game that you want to buy, and it's sort of up to you to decide at what price you want to buy that game at. And I thought one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight how Kitfox has done prices in the past, and again, just because they gave me a key doesn't mean I know anything about what the discounts are going to be like in the future, but it is maybe worth keeping in mind that I think Kitfox is a very good idea of what their games are worth. And so if you are waiting for this game to be a $10 game, you're kind of looking at a couple of years of waiting. Again, assuming that it's Shrouded Isles any indication. If you think right now the 1979 is too much, this is Canadian, by the way. US, it'll probably be different. I do encourage you to wishlist it, because obviously you're not going to know that it goes on sale if Steam doesn't put that information out. But if you're looking for things like what the next few discounts are going to be like, it's not actually going to be all that different from what the release price is. Again, if you use the Shrouded Isle as a previous indication. So use that as your guideline. I do want, at least as far as I can, to help people who are interested in this game to connect with it, and connect with it at a time when they appreciate it the most. But on the other hand, of course, I know we also have big libraries of games we haven't played yet. And so I also think from a financial standpoint, it's actually a good idea not to buy stuff that you don't need. But to me, this is a pretty special game, which I'm very happy to be able to check out. So thank you, Janice in accounting. And yeah, I'm doing quite well, Starbright Night. As I mentioned before, I got this, Kitfox is a really interesting developer. They gave me a key for Lucifer Within Us. This is an interesting game. So I wanted to do my duty in terms of trying to connect people with the game. And it's now time to actually show people what's interesting about it. The Coronet blueprints and a valuable piece of physical evidence. A new entry is now added in your evidence panel, which can be found in the lower left of your display. There, you can access detailed information about the Coronet blueprints. You must present them to the suspects in order to discover any contradictions. $17.99 US. Wow. Okay, if I'm honest, I actually think that's a little underpriced. Again, I'm basing that on the demo, but on the other hand, like, price is what you pay, value is what you get, and Notia did just come out at the same time as this, so I suspect there's just because I think the game is worth something doesn't mean that people are going to be willing to pay it. So you must present them to the suspects in order to discover any contradictions. Coronet blueprints. Plans for constructing the ether coronet. The purpose of the device seems to be to amplify the user's ether output. The components are amplifier, casing, and limiter. All right, let's keep getting the evidence. A new piece of evidence? Let's examine it now. Consecration ceremony. Place the coronet and the recipient in the chamber. The performer and the recipient pray in silence. Begin the song to start modulating the ether. Intensify the ether output by bringing the performance to a crescendo. And we found the coronet limiter, which obviously now we found the murder weapon. Found in Gideon's workspace in pristine condition. The component is required to safely install the coronet without causing an ether oversurge. And then spear blueprints found in Reuben's workstation. Plans for restoring a relic that was recently brought to St. Walpurgia's by Father Augustine. Which, again, my aunt, who, let's say it can sometimes be a challenge with, is very fond of St. Augustine, this is the author of City of God, the book, not the rather good film. But I kind of want to show her this game just to see what she thinks of it. Control panel used to activate and control the consecration chamber. Usage records show that the ether output during the ceremony was well beyond safe ranges. Whatever gives you that impression. Door controls. Used to open and close the consecration chamber, only operable from outside the chamber. Usage records show that it was opened twice this morning. Well, that's a body, all right. The body is completely unharmed, but the head... Yeah, I was going to say, what? But her head exploded into a mess of bloody and bone fragments. Sorry, mess of blood and bone fragments. I was like, this is the level of detection that I would be doing to say the body is unharmed. Coronet remains found near Mother Miriam's body. Parts of the amplifier and the amplifier component and bits of the casing has survived the explosion. 10% off. You click the game. It's actually $19.99, but still a good price. I didn't know Steam showed the sale price in the search preview first. Ah, okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, and then let's find out about our two suspects. So Gideon, the younger brother, crafts and casing and ornaments of implants and crafts the casing and ornaments of implants and handles the ceremonial aspect of the installation. And Reuben, elder brother, less popular than Gideon due to his dour, cynical demeanor and his focus on the engineering of implants. I am curious, by the way, for those of you who haven't done the demo, like for those of you who haven't been exposed to this game before yet, who do you think is the guilty party? One thing that I do rather like about this game too is that, so it is sometimes fun to have like a notepad beside you and like write investigation notes in games like that. Also, space games, ones that are based on exploration, to be able to like leave your own notes. It's sometimes really satisfying to have just this scrawl of absolute madness to look at and have as like an artifact of your playthrough. But the game does a nice job here of sort of informing you about details. So, for instance, we've got Miriam's arrival. This has no corroboration. Mother Miriam came to me for the consecration ceremony. I performed this many times before, so I was confident. Reuben says Mother Miriam came to us to receive a consecration ceremony, but she wanted something extravagant. And so clearly we've returned to the scene of our own crime. You know, actually, the funny thing is that the implication in the loading screen for this is that we're accused of the murder. So, but yeah, so what you can do, it's going to explain it for us here. Now that I've discovered important pieces of evidence, let's ask the suspect about them. Let's select any evidence and ask them about it. Okay, so it looks like we're going to have to do the contradictions later. Good. I should remember that I can ask a suspect about any evidence that I find. My masterwork, it was perfectly fitted to Mother Miriam's brow. Even in pieces you can see the sublime beauty of my artistry. But this can't be all you found. Where's the limiter? Limiter? There was a safety device? The ether limiter was supposed to protect the coronet from an oversurge. Additionally, it was the crown jewel of the coronet. I suppose it's shattered. Damnation. Recognize this component, Gideon? It was found at your workstation. The coronet limiter? Impossible. But the explosion? How can it be undamaged? Someone must have removed it from the coronet prior to the ceremony. All but ensuring that the ceremony would end in a bloody mess. I had nothing to do with this. Why would I sabotage my own work? Why indeed?
Mother Miriam came to me for her consecration ceremony.
Were you alone when greeting Mother Miriam? Yes, I'm certain I was alone then. So... Oh, does it not let me... I thought I had an option to do... It may be that I actually need to unlock that in the tutorial. Reuben is my dullard brother. He's practically my assistant. Mother Miriam was my guiding light. The consecration ceremony is meant to be glorious, beautiful. Reuben has always been devout, serious, and boring. We can't all be grand, I suppose. How exactly do you operate this device? Do you press the keys, much like a normal organ? This is a crude way to phrase it. There's much artistry in the performance. The rhythm and melody of my music affects how the energy is transferred into the implant.
We began by...
You heard the door open? Perhaps. I think I also heard footsteps. But it's a vague faint memory, not to mention it's impossible. After all, Mother Miriam can't open the door from within. Reuben was probably working away on some new device or another. I must have imagined it. These door access records show that the chamber was sealed during the ceremony. There you have it. Proof that the ceremony was performed flawlessly. Perhaps. What's curious is that the door was opened twice. The first time was when Reuben opened the chamber to let Mother Miriam in. The second time was just before the ceremony started, when you closed your eyes and prayed for guidance. With the one true God as my witness, I swear that is the truth. I kneeled and listened for his voice. It must have been Reuben who opened it for some reason. He was always skittish about the slightest possibility of malfunction. Gideon claims that the ether output values were within safe ranges, but the control panel indicates otherwise. Let's present the control panel to him and unmask the lie. You lied, Gideon. The ceremony wasn't safe. Control panel's records show that the ether output values were in abnormally high ranges. Of course it was. Mother Miriam wanted the coronet as powerful as it could be. But I am Gideon the Grand. With my talents, I had it under control. I made no errors. Something else went wrong. I just don't know what. Gideon has amended his testimony. Let's examine and maintain control. Good. The statement from Gideon's testimony is now verified for two reasons. 1. Specificity. It has a shorter time frame and describes a clearer set of events. 2. Physicality. Gideon's testimony is now consistent with the records from the control panel. I can assume that any verified statement like this is true. Oddly enough, it still says unverified, though. What's more, the contradiction weakened the suspect's resolve. His eye of providence glows, which allows me to enter his sanctum, the digital representation of his mind. Let's use his third eye to enter his sanctum and see what truly motivates this suspect. This, again, for those of you who are watching us playing Mass Effect 3, we had a big talk about cyberpunk. So I think this is a decent example about how you can take some ideas that maybe we associate a lot with cyberpunk, but take them in more interesting directions, because it's been like 30 years. Like, I guess at this point here, like, cyberpunk should be having a quarter-life crisis and, like, wondering what the hell it's doing with its life. And at least in this case, it's found religion. Actually, I guess it's more like 40 years. Yes, we've used our powers of deduction to figure out that this guy who calls himself Gideon the Grand might have an overstimulated ego. We only cracked the outer layer of his inner sanctum this time. Still, let's examine the psychological evidence that we found. Interesting. This information will help me discern which statements to trust. Let's quickly examine each statement in his testimony again. Excellent. Some of the statements are now supported by the suspect's psychology. Next, I must find correlations between the suspect's behavior and existing demons. Or daemons. Let's open the demonology. I once had they gave me an award for humility, but then they took it away because I wore it. That would have been better if I said metal. Lucifer the Proud, the Prince of Demons and the eternal adversary of Ein Sof, manifests in the ambitious and strong-willed, promising them their heart's desire in exchange for their soul. Something you only realized just now is how intricate the UI is. You don't have to go through a bunch of menus. It is very well presented. Like I was saying before with the timeline and whatnot, like I like how they present. Again, sometimes it's nice to be able to have the ability to write down notes, particularly for really immersive games. But in this one here, I kind of like that it's given me the information that I need to be able to make the judgments, especially too because I'm playing a detective and my powers of deduction are not necessarily the same as I guess an exorcist I'm technically playing. But in any case, I think the fact that the game gives me the account is sort of giving me the abilities that this character has, but I don't necessarily present myself. As the title indicates, I've been reading up on this guy and he seems no good. Actually, I'm kind of curious, Johnny, now that you've seen a little bit of the investigation, what you think of this. Beelzebub the Gluttonous, a simple-minded demon that debilitates the host, turning them into feral beasts. The host is compelled to consume stranger and filthier things until nothing remains of their humanity. Kind of like the lady in the Walmart eating the bacon. Sathanas the Vengeful, a furious demon that stokes the simmering rage within the host, preys upon the fervent and the righteous, goading them to take matters into their own hands. And Lotan the Envious, playful but deceitful demon who slowly drives the host mad with whispers of their own inadequacy. The host blames others for their ill fortune until the apparent injustice drives them to take what is rightfully theirs. So again, we said this before. Yeah, I don't know if Johnny's still around, but Johnny Big Time is a streamer I'm quite fond of, who I think will probably like this game. So, but I wind up sounding very needy when I'm talking to people who are in the chat. And yeah. If the suspect is possessed, there should be psychological evidence that has a clear correlation with the demon. To obtain further psychological evidence, I must find more contradictions and present them to the suspect. Now that I've heard the testimony and gathered evidence, I can accuse the suspect. To accuse the suspect, I must establish the opportunity, means, and motive of the crime. I can try as many times as I wish, but there is only one true answer for each section. Let's try to establish the opportunity. Let's present a section of the suspect's testimony. Good. If it's a valid answer, the suspect will be forced to admit that they could have committed the murder at that time. Otherwise, the suspect will give a counter-argument as to why that is impossible. When could I possibly have harmed Mother Miriam? You were the last person to handle the coronet. If the coronet was damaged during the events of this morning. Next, let's try to establish the means. For this, I need to present physical evidence. By what means are you claiming that I killed her? Well, good. Same as before, the suspect will accept my evidence if it is valid, and deny it if they can explain why I'm wrong. While you were adjusting the coronet, you removed the limiter. That's nonsense. Do you really think I would forget to replace the crown jewel of my masterpiece? Finally, let's establish a motive. So it seems that for whatever reason, the limiter is not appropriate. I will say, by the way, for the guy who's going on about what a badass he is, it is a little inconsistent, I suppose. But finally, motive. I need to present psychological evidence from their own sanctum. And again, this one I think is fairly weak. But so there's one thing I really like about forcing you to make an accusation this early. Privately, for me, I like giving myself little challenges like, I want to get this right the first time. Because technically in this, you could sort of brute force your way through all the combinations. The fact that you have so many combinations makes that a really unappealing way of solving the game. But in this case here, they're establishing right up at the front that it is not... it's not a bad thing to give a false accusation, that ultimately the game will not punish you for doing that. And I feel like that's something you need to establish really early on, because I suspect, if I wasn't given that information when I played the demo first, I probably would have been very reluctant to accuse someone. And so as a result, I would have gotten bogged down and feeling very lost. Good. If he's the culprit, then presented with the correct motive, the demon within him will compel him to speak the truth. If not, he will deny my claim. You are a self-absorbed man. Everything you do feeds into your pride. To you, Mother Miriam was a mere prop for your masterpiece. You carelessly caused her death in the pursuit of artistic glory. How dare you! I took the utmost care in everything I did for Mother Miriam. The coronet was designed to be worn by her. Without her, it will forever remain imperfect. I would never risk anything that could harm my work or Mother Miriam. I loved Mother Miriam. Why would I hurt her? This accusation was unsuccessful, which means I must investigate further. Let's cancel for now and leave the suspect. All right, so I think I should be able to...
Mother Miriam came
there
to
we
me
go.
for her consecration ceremony. I've performed this many times before, so I was...
Lies, Gideon. Reuben tells me that he was with you when Mother Miriam arrived. What? Well, come to think of it, yes, he was standing there, scowling as usual. He was not just standing there, he tried to stop you. Mother Miriam wanted her coronet to be extraordinary, and so you convinced her to increase its ether output. Reuben warned you about the danger, but insisted to Mother Miriam that the ceremony was safe. But you insisted to Mother Miriam that the ceremony was safe. I love my brother, but Reuben can be a sniveling coward. He's exaggerating the risk, clearly. Yes, the ceremony had some danger. However, it was well within my abilities. I made no error. This is how it happened.
Mother Miriam came to me for her consecration ceremony. I've performed this many times before, so I was confident. Mother Miriam wanted the coronet to be spectacular, so I suggested maximizing its Aether amplification.
The blood splattered at the ritual site proved this to be a lie. All right, let's take the drill into his forehead. Evidence discovered. Skeptic. Founded Gideon's sanctum, speaks and acts virtuously in public, but doesn't really believe in the one truth or the demons. Weren't they rooted 100 years ago? I'm a faithful member of the Abbey, but surely demons are a thing of the past. There hasn't been a murder in 100 years, sister. Why would one happen now? I am indeed talented, and proud of it. Einsoft granted me my gifts, and I gladly use them for his glory.
To prepare for the ceremony, I ordered Reuben to take Mother Miriam to the consecration chamber.
All right, so we don't necessarily have any contradictions
While I
there.
adjusted the coronet's amplification at my work table, and then placed it on Mother Miriam's head.
So I'm going to try a contradiction here with the limiter. I have no idea what you mean or what that has to do with me. All right.
We began by closing our eyes and praying together to Einsoft. I thought I heard the chamber open, but then I rose up, opened the Aether output was dangerously high, but I had the chamber under control.
So we did try the control panel again. Yeah. I was trying to figure out exactly what the deal was with maintain control, because it says that it's not verified, which might mean there's another layer for us to where was it? All right. We'll leave that be for now. Well, let's try one more thing.
The Aether output was dangerously high.
Okay. I do feel like there's more that we can get out of this. So it says the chamber is under control. I suspect there's a way that we can break that, but let's talk with Reuben, because one of the things that I like visually is that you also get some pointers in terms of where your opportunities are. So you've got a fairly decent account of what's happened from Gideon. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but we definitely have a lot of material to work with here. And it would make sense that as we get more information from the other witness, that we might be able to start breaking down, break down the account into smaller components. And so essentially what we've kind of got this giant block to work with in terms of return to work, particularly with regards to, curious, Reuben claims he went back to his workstation. What does Gideon say? Let's switch to his testimony.
To prepare for this,
Gideon claims that Reuben opened the door to the consecration chamber. Let's go back to Reuben.
Gideon convinced her to move forward with the ceremony anyway. Since he was going to handle everything, I went back to my tasks.
Reuben Garamond, you did not return to your workstation after the discussion. Gideon ordered you to open the consecration chamber for Mother Miriam. Ordered me? Is that what he told you? Despite his delusions, Gideon is certainly not my master. Did I open the chamber? It's true. I apologize for the omission. Sorry, I did open the chamber. I apologize for the omission. It's a regular part of our routine that it slipped my mind earlier. Reuben has amended his testimony. Let's examine open chamber. Good. The statement from Reuben's testimony is now verified for 2 reasons. 1. Corroboration. Gideon's testimony confirms that Reuben opened the door for Mother Miriam. 2. Specificity. It has a shorter time frame and describes a clearer set of events. I can assume that any verified statement like this is true.
They decided to perform the ceremony.
So the door was closed until that point? Why did you not close it after Mother Miriam entered? Because I knew Gideon was bringing the coronet soon. The ceremony had yet to begin anyway, so it was safe to keep the chamber open. All right.
Since Gideon was going to handle everything, I went back to my tasks.
So basically, well, there's a couple of details here in terms of how I would present it, but essentially the biggest kind of signal visually for me would be the fact that we've got the prayer and the return to work. There's going to be some kind of a contradiction I need here, but I did forget to look at his sanctum, so. Evidence discovered, believer. Found in Reuben's sanctum, faithful servant of Ein Sof, or so he thinks. He knows that cybernetics are a critical critical part of the one truth. Cybernetics empower us in the eyes of the one true God, Ein Sof. I am honored to be of service. Let's ask him about Gideon's narcissism. Or sorry, wait a minute. Reuben is a vapid idiot and only cares about glory. Now his arrogance has gotten someone killed. I gotta screenshot that. My brother never understood the importance of our work or our faith. He acts the part of a zealot, but he only cares about the here and now. Alright. Gideon thought he heard something during his prayer? That doesn't mean anything. He could have imagined it. You test my patience, Reuben. Has your memory slipped once more? The door records show that the consecration chamber has been opened twice today. Given that Gideon was praying during this time, only you could have opened the chamber. It's true that I opened the chamber again, just before the ceremony started. But I had my reasons. Something about the chamber seemed unseemly. Given what happened to Mother Miriam, I feel vindicated in my fears. Tell me what you did in the chamber. So, still a big... So, obviously here there's a big block of activity that can happen, but let's...
Since Gideon was going to handle everything, I went back to my tasks.
What were you working on? I was restoring a ceremonial spear for tonight's mass. It's a magnificent relic. I think Abbot Gregory will be pleased with the result.
So I opened the consecration chamber to verify that the coronet was in working order. Everything seemed fine, so I returned to my desk again.
What's making you say, hold on, the vision cone is interesting? Yeah, well, I like it too. In the demo, there were a couple of cases where it seemed to be revealing a little bit more than it intended in terms of where people were walking and whatnot. But it's nice because, of course, what you're dealing with is testimony. So, just because, like, someone's going to give you their impression of events, and if, obviously in the case of Gideon's testimony, a large part of it involves him sitting somewhere with his eyes closed. And so the fact that things are happening off screen, one thing I like about it is it creates a little bit of a challenge in the sense that you are kind of given this illusion of omniscience because of the perspective, sort of I don't want to say isometric because that's not right, but this top-down view. And the fact that there's the vision cones, it's a nice little visual reminder that you're being given an imperfect view on the world through a glass darkly. If I want to get all biblical on you, when Gideon activated the consecration chamber, I immediately felt something was wrong. I begged Gideon to stop, but he didn't listen. Found Reuben's sanctum. Why does Gideon get all the credit for all of Reuben's hard work? If only Gideon could be exposed for being the fraud that he is. Me? Envious of Gideon? Unlikely. His artistry would be nothing without my designs. He doesn't know the first thing about how our implants actually work. All of his work is trite, superficial. Why anyone gives him attention is beyond me.
When Gideon activated the consecration chamber, I immediately felt something was wrong. I begged Gideon to stop, but he didn't listen.
All right. Excellent. I've gone through the fundamental steps of investigating a murder. However, there is much I have yet to uncover about this incident. I should continue to find more information, contradict the suspects with them, and try to accuse a suspect. No one will tell me when I'm ready to accuse. That is entirely up to my discretion. However, there are no consequences for a failed accusation. Each failure will help bring me closer to the truth of the incident. Actually, there is one other thing I wanted to talk to him about, which was this spear. This is what I was working on during the ceremony. Father Augustine, a visiting scholar, asked me to help restore this relic. I'm quite proud of my work. It should be ready for tonight's mass. A visiting scholar who studies demons and the ether. Father Augustine is a scholar of demons and etheric technologies. He's made truly remarkable discoveries in his theoretical works. That is a face of an innocent man. Yeah. It's he's calling himself, yeah. Reuben has always been devout, serious, and boring. We can't all be grand, I suppose. Reuben is jealous of me? Of course he is. Who wouldn't be? Oh yeah, sorry. The other thing, I mentioned this in the demo too. Of course, the character Ada, named after the programming language, which is of course named after Ada Lovelace, attributed to being the first programmer. Of course, the computer didn't exist at the time, but had the benefit of seeing potentially what it could become. And I apologize. I've got a little bit of an earache that's developed over the last little while, so if I've been a little subdued, it's just because I'm in pain. But nothing. We won't stop the cast for it. I'm a little bit behind where I thought I would be, but all right. So I think the maintain control has my. I vaguely recall him coming to me. I didn't hear him. I was too busy performing the ceremony. I have no idea what you mean or what that has to do with me. Okay, so there's got to be something about the fact that there's got to be something about the control that's So we tried the limiter, we tried the remains, we tried the body. We already did. Although I haven't been trying anything on...
We began by closing our eyes and praying together to Ein Sof.
He opened the chamber while I was praying? That seems paranoid even for him. Okay.
Then I rose up, opened my eyes, and the aether output was dangerously high, but I had the chamber under control.
You've now admitted that the ceremony was risky. What makes you so confident that you maintained control? Because I'm a maestro. I remember every bit of my performance. Sorry. Almost ready to sneeze, but nothing that I did could have overcome the coronet limiter. So is that the thing that's forcing me to... Yeah, it's odd because it's like it's really clear it's trying to present. It's really clear it's trying to say that there's something that I can dig into here, but I feel like I've kind of given him all of the possible evidence. I am gonna just try. I'm gonna just try brute forcing each of these. I feel like one of these things should be... All right.
Meanwhile, I adjusted the coronet's amplification at my work table, and then placed it on Mother Miriam's head.
Recognize this component, Gideon? It was found at your workstation. The coronet limiter. Impossible, but the explosion. How can it be undamaged? Oh, right. We already did that, so...
We began by then the aether output ended. The aether output was dangerously high. Then I rose up, opened my eyes, and...
Alright, let's see. I might be missing some evidence. Already recorded notes. I'm like 99% sure there was a detail in here that I needed, or that I did in the previous playthrough. Alright, let's see what Virgil has to say about this. Gideon claims that the incident was an accident, but Reuben claims it's Gideon's fault. Are either of them telling the truth? Perhaps there's another possibility.
When Gideon activated the consecration chamber, I immediately felt something was...
Why did you have to ask Gideon to stop? Why not force him? Couldn't you open the chamber or push Gideon aside? Interrupting the ceremony would have been more dangerous. Had I opened the chamber, the energy would have been let loose into the workshop. Had I pushed Gideon away, no one would have been controlling the energy gathered within the chamber. In either case, my action would have resulted in a greater catastrophe. Apologies, Sister Ada, I do not follow your logic. Neither do I, frankly. Alright, well, let's see if we can say something about...
So I opened the consecration chamber to verify that the coronet was in working order.
What were you checking? To perform the consecration ceremony safely, precision is critical. I wanted to make sure that the coronet was placed correctly on Mother Miriam. So I suppose the first contradiction I would get would be to say there was something wrong with the coronet. Huh. So I can't contradict him even though it's clear that he checked a device which was wrong. Again, I don't like doing it this way, but... Odd. Okay.
Everything seemed fine, so I returned to my desk again.
What are you working on? I was restoring ceremonial spear. All right.
Since
I think he's
Gideon
going to
was
see the same
handle
thing.
everything, I went back to my tasks. Everything seemed fine, so I returned to my desk again.
What I'm really trying to do here is catch someone in a lie so that I can find out what their
The Aether output was dangerously.
I guess I can't contradict on the basis of personality. Good to know.
Meanwhile, I adjusted the coronet's amplification at my work table, and then placed it on Mother. We began. Meanwhile, I adjusted the coronet's
Again, I don't like doing it on here. I think that the biggest problem that I'm running into is I seem to remember a different set of events when I was playing the demo, and now I'm feeling a little lost. So
We began by closing our eyes. Then I rose up, opened my eyes, and...
Did you notice or hear anything at this time? Come to think of it, I thought I heard something behind me. I don't remember exactly. My mind was focusing on the ceremony. Okay, that seems like something to ask Ruben about.
Since everything seemed...
Yep, wrong one. Yes, he approached the control panel at the time. Yeah, fair enough. Actually, okay, hang on. So now that I think it, so I'm getting a little bit of an image in terms of what might be going on here. So if we say
Then I rose
ceremony
up, opened my
starts.
eyes, and approached the control panel. The Aether output. Then I rose up.
So did you notice anything? Come to think of it, I thought I heard something behind me. I don't remember exactly what. So
We began by closing. Meanwhile, I adjusted
yeah.
the coordinates
So
amplification. We began by closing our. Meanwhile,
if we can rely on
Then I
what Gideon
rose up,
says,
opened
right?
my eyes, and approached the control panel. I was ready to begin. The Aether output. Then we began by closing our
We know he's
eyes
checked the
and
chamber,
ran
took the
together
limiter, and
to
put
our
it on the table. I just really, actually, you know what? I'm gonna do something a little. I'm gonna do something a little scummy. So there is an achievement if you ask each suspect about every evidence and testimony statement found in the two brothers' case. So I'm clearly missing out on something. Unfortunately, I was occupied at this time and did not see exactly what Gideon did.
So
I saw Gideon pray before the ceremony began. He did that right, at least.
everything seemed...
Yes, he approached the control panel at this time. After what happened, Gideon still thinks he had things under control. He's delusional. Gideon acts as though he's remorseful, but it's just pretense. He knew it was putting Mother Miriam's life at risk from the very beginning. Okay, so we've got the spear. The other thing, of course, is that we've got arcane relics that he's working on, which can possibly be where the demons are coming from. Hey, angry. Well, I don't think you should. I think you should take care of yourself. It does put a little pressure on me to actually deliver something that's worth losing sleep for, though. If you don't. Okay. So there's two possibility. The two biggest threads that I can see in terms of contradiction is the maintain control and the try to stop ceremony, right? It's what makes you so confident that you made your control? Because I'm a maestro, I remember every bit of my performance. Nothing that I did could have overcome the coronet limiter. We tried to stop the ceremony, that didn't work. We tried I think we tried each item again. I think if I try to contradict that, yeah.
Since everything seemed fine, so I returned to...
Alright, well, we can at least try and get an accusation in. Gideon was the one that operated the device. How could I have affected the chamber or Mother Miriam? There's nothing faulty with the coronet itself. Indeed, the craftsmanship was flawless, as was Gideon's performance of the ceremony, but you removed the limiter from the coronet without Gideon's knowledge, which, coupled with the coronet's high amplification, caused an oversurge. Gideon's arrogance may have endangered Mother Miriam, but you ensured that she would die from it. If you were accusing me of sabotage, when could I have done any of this? During the prayer, you claimed to have opened the chamber to check the materials. That's when you sabotaged the ceremony. Mother Miriam was our patron. Why would I want to harm her? Mother Miriam's death was merely a means to an end, humiliation of Gideon. You envy your brother's success, and you want his fame, his glory. So, given the fact that it says that there is more...
Since Gideon was going to handle everything, I went back to my tasks.
Given the fact that it says that there's an achievement related, I'm going to really quickly run through all the evidence. And just see if that triggers it. I'm not going to do achievement hunting on this stream, so like if it comes down to it, I'll do this on my own time, but I just want to see if there's a detail that I could have Basically, I'm just going to focus on the blue ones. So how long have we been on, by the way? For probably the past hour and a half, but I had kind of a long lead-in, so... Most of these are just daft, but this, like, at this point, I have a fairly clear idea of what happened. I've obviously had a fairly clear since we did the demo. What's driving me a little nuts is... the fact that I seem to be doing less than what
so I returned to my desk again.
I seem to be doing like a worse job than I was in the demo.
When Gideon activated the consecration chamber, I immediately felt something.
Sorry, I know this isn't very exciting. We'll do one last... I'm going to do one last run on Gideon. And then, all right. So, I mean, it seems to make sense to me that he's not going to be trying, that he's not going to just confess to stuff. So it seemed to me that the breakdown needs to be happening with Gideon somewhere.
Meanwhile, I adjusted the coordinates amplification at my...
It just seems odd to me that he's allowed to make this rather bold claim that the ceremony was under control when we clearly have evidence from the control panel, well beyond safe ranges, and his brother trying to stop him. It just seems really weird that he's allowed to say that everything was fine.
We began. Meanwhile, I adjusted the coordinates amplification at my work table. And
I think I already did this, but I'll just... So then it would seem to me the only last bit that's not verified would be the maintain control.
chamber under control.
The control panel and the shattered coronet indicate that there was a dangerous amount of ether output. Yes, I was performing something slightly dangerous, but I had it under control. Clearly not, given what happened. You could have stopped the ceremony. Because I was confident I could do it safely, something else must have gone wrong. And then motivation. I suppose skepticism might work. Your faith is weak, Gideon. Indeed, you question the teachings of the church. You killed Mother Miriam because you have utter disdain for our faith. What nonsense! My skepticism merely serves as fuel for my creativity. One must be open to all possibilities to create truly original works. Besides, that does not explain why I would wish to kill Mother Miriam in particular. I loved Mother Miriam. Why would I hurt her? Okay, so we don't actually have sufficient evidence. In either case, I feel a little salty that I'm blowing the investigation in the sense that there's like one other item that I could be working with. But I think I thought Reuben was the murderer anyway.
Einsaf sees all, Reuben. You killed Mother Miriam to frame Gideon and take him down a peg. With Gideon gone, a daemon whispered that people would finally recognize you for your genius.
I am older than Gideon. My work is better than Gideon, and more important. But no one sees my work. No one understands my work.
Confess, Reuben. Tell us what the daemon made you do.
Gideon was Mother Miriam's favorite. She barely knew I existed. When Gideon suggested increasing the ether output of the coronet, I had an idea.
Oh, sure, Angry Cat. Just 1 minute.
By removing the limiter, Mother Miriam had no idea what was about to happen to her. I went back to my workstation, waiting for Gideon to close his eyes. While Gideon and Mother Miriam were praying, I reopened the chamber and removed the limiter. When Gideon started the ceremony, I placed a limiter on his table so that it would look as though his negligence led to Mother Miriam's death. When the oversearch began, I goaded Gideon on by telling him to stop the ceremony. Of course he didn't listen. And so Mother Miriam died. I killed her. I regret only that I've been discovered.
So you've more or less got what happened, AngerCat 365. So this is the starting mission, and this was also the demo for the game, although it stopped right at this point here. But essentially, we're brought in for the first potential murder in St. Walpurgia's Abbey. And the idea is that I am sort of this digital exorcist that has been brought in to investigate this murder. And essentially, we found the sort of this planted evidence. So it's fairly clear from the start what's happened, that there's an important component for this ritual that has been taken away, which turned it fatal. And essentially what the kind of the breakdown was finding out the character of these two brothers and what might be motivating them. And we ultimately found that Reuben has jealousy of his brother. It does sort of interest me. I thought in the demo we were able to actually be able to do a full accusation on Gideon. And it might be that they just pulled away that option so that you'd wind up with a single path that you could go down. Again, I'm feeling like I missed one opportunity for testimony. But in this case here, we seem to have solved the murder. So.
Demonic corruption runs deep within Reuben's soul, yet Reuben may still be saved. I must speak the daemon's true name. Then the daemon will be cast out. Ein Sof, guide me. What daemon has possessed Reuben?
I would say Lotan the Envious.
Out, Lotan! Leave this soul and return whence you came!
Magnificently done, Madam Exorcist.
The power of Ein Sof compels you, Lotan. Leave this soul and return to the ether!
Thousands of years, and you humans never change. Never satisfied, always comparing, wanting more. Someone else is always richer, prettier, wiser, better. Nothing can ever fill that void within you. Not even me.
Behold, the patron demon of Twitch streamers.
Silence, Lotan. Reuben may yet be redeemed. You are a scourge. Without your influence, a good woman would still be alive. Leave humans be, Lotan. I banish you to the ether!
As you wish, but I'll return soon enough. My prince and master Lucifer walks among you. Lucifer will open the gates of hell, and at last, humanity will remember its full potential. Until then, Madam Exorcist, adieu.
Come forth, Reuben. What remains of you?
Thank.
He's silent and still. Poor soul. Rest, Reuben. Heal, if you can.
Sister Ada, you've returned. Was there a demon at work after all?
I'm afraid so. The exorcism was a success. Reuben's soul has been purged. Unfortunately, the daemon was difficult to cleanse. Reuben is returned to pure innocence.
What? The exorcism shattered his mind? Can you bring him back?
It's out of my hands. If Ein Sof wills it, maybe Reuben will heal.
Guards, please escort this shell to the cryostasis cellar. I pray for his swift recovery. Abbot Gregory!
Praise be to Ein Sof, Sister Ada. You have saved us all. On behalf of everyone at St. Walpurgis, I express our utmost gratitude.
We are not yet safe. We must act quickly until we locate the source of the demonic influence. We don't understand yet why demons would act after 100 years. Holy Father, we must quarantine the abbey and the surrounding town immediately. Detain and interrogate anyone who seems suspicious.
We can try, Sister Ada, but it will be difficult, as we have visitors arriving hourly. Much like yourself, pilgrims from afar are here to celebrate Walpurgisnacht.
Can't imagine why the demons might be behaving, might be acting up tonight.
It's such a shame Mother Miriam couldn't bear witness to it.
Ah, yes, the priestess. We must destroy her body immediately. Traces of demonic influence may remain from her contact with Reuben.
No, Sister Ada, thank you for your concern, but we absolutely cannot. Mother Miriam was a prominent figure and well-loved, with decades of service. We must treat her body with dignity and give her a proper burial. Send Mother Miriam's body to the mortuary for embalming.
Your Excellency, we really ought to take the advice of the exorcist.
Mother Miriam's body has been desecrated enough, Virgil. Send her to the mortuary, now.
As you command, Your Excellency.
Holy Father, you are making a grave mistake.
Sister Ada, don't worry yourself. All will be well. St. Walpurga's triumph over Lucifer has brought us a century of peace and bliss. It's horrifying that a demon was exorcised from our abbey, but surely it was the final remnant.
This is actually a really interesting idea because, of course, if you have Lucifer as this, this figure for envy, returning to the site of his defeat is a neat little motivation.
The demon within Reuben spoke of Lucifer's return. Lucifer's ways are insidious. Even the most devout among us have temptations.
It's a shame Brother Reuben fell to the demon, but the rest of my flock is stronger. Faith shall be their shield. Now, please excuse me. This evening's mass requires my attention. We are honored by your presence, Sister Ada. Praise be to Ein Sof.
Even the Holy Father can be foolish then. Ein Sof. Let it not be true that Lucifer walks. But if it is, Ein Sof, guide me, that I may unmask all lies, no matter how painful.
The demon's final words haunted me. Lucifer was already among us. I wanted to destroy Mother Miriam's body and to purge any traces of demonic influence. Abbot Gregory did not heed my words. Mother Miriam was to be given a proper burial. That afternoon, Inquisitor Virgil sent for me, asking urgently to meet him at the graveyard. So it looks like I didn't... it does look like I'm missing the achievement for investigating... Oh, hang on. No, there is... Oh, interesting. So, two brothers interrogate, find all contradictions and psychological evidence in the two brothers' case, but two brothers interviewers ask each suspect about every evidence and testimony statement found in the two brothers' case. So there's actually a different... In this case, apparently I forgot to ask them about something, but I found all the contradictions, so I was wasting my time by flipping through all of those. All right. I'm a bit of a dummy, but that's life. Now we're into brand new content that I've never seen before.
Thank you for coming to our aid so quickly, Sister Ada.
You said it was urgent. Has something happened to Mother Miriam's body?
No, in some ways, that would have been easier. There is now a second untimely death.
Hey, it's more productive hours for me. I get overtime, right?
Another murder. On the very same day. This can't be a coincidence.
That isn't for me to say, but this time, the victim is a younger acolyte named Isaac. His remains were found in the grave that was dug for Mother Miriam. Poor kid's throat was slit.
Gruesome. Who was at the graveyard when the body was found?
Only 3 people were present this afternoon. A scholar, an embalmer, and a gravetender. Father Augustine is a scholar, visiting for Mother Miriam's funeral. The victim was his apprentice.
Wait a minute. Visiting for Mother Miriam's funeral? Well, we already knew that he was working with...
Sister Nerissa, an embalmer with a sterling reputation, preparing Mother Miriam's body for burial. Finally, Abraham, the Gravetender, a layman who has kept the grounds of the abbey for many years. None of them say they were near the grave until after the body was discovered.
Which means someone is lying. No matter. Ein Sof sees all.
Alright, so if this winds up being Abraham who cut Isaac's throat...
We will unmask their lies and bring the truth forward.
Can I
I
just...
swear it.
Can I just put that, not look at any evidence and just put that as a... It's basically a full circle scenario where we create a cyberspace with commands that are incredibly intuitive and all the data is represented as physical things. I don't believe this is... So I believe this is a real world with cybernetic augmentation rather than happening in a virtual space. Have you examined the victim's body? The sharp incision in his throat was clearly the cause of death, but why does he have that scar? The immaculately maintained grave shows the genealogy of an illustrious family. There's a blade of grass out of place around the stone. Its lightweight blade slices through the air to trim grass and chop weeds. Its sharp edge could easily injure someone. So I think we'll go looking for evidence before I start interviewing people. A statue of Saint Walpurgia, the founder of the abbey and patron saint of exorcists. A portable ether-powered device for recording images and text. The victim, a teenage youth aspiring to be a scholar, raised in the church, he has joined Augustine as his apprentice 8 months ago. And we had... the apprentice's youthful face is serene above his cleanly slit throat, with no bruising. However, an angry scar runs across his stomach. Found on the staircase between the mortuary and the grave, an ether-powered tool for making incisions, applying preservatives and closing wounds. Alright, so I think we've got 2 potential murder weapons here, although it would seem to me that... What is this? The devil's herb! I knew something nefarious is afoot. The abbey must be purified of its scent. I should dispose of any that I find. Okay, so it looks like... Oh, hello. Found hanging in the back area of the mortuary, heavy, bulky, and caked with dirt. Muddy footprints. Found on the floors of the mortuary, still wet. Leads from the back exit of the mortuary to the embalming table. A bundle of fresh blossoms, like the ones found on a grave. Why were they on the floor? Graveyard schedule. The records show 2 notable entries for today, both explicitly authorized by Abbot Gregory. 1, funeral for Mother Miriam at sundown. 2, visit by Father Augustine. Unrestricted access granted. Found on a table with other entrails, still partially warm and moist. It appears mangled in some way, perhaps smashed? Identified as Mother Miriam, there's a large incision down her stomach. Judging by the uneven coloring and chemical scent, she appears to be partially embalmed. Newly appointed voice of Ein Sof, scheduled to receive an ether coronet implant at the workshop, murdered in the morning. Alright, so I think that is it for evidence. At this point, we need to start talking with people.
You must be Father Augustine. The victim was your apprentice, correct?
Correct. And you are Sister Ada, the exorcist. It is a unique pleasure.
This guy's super guilty of something. Thank you, but I only surnamed Sof according to my calling. Why are you here, Father? I'm visiting in preparation for Mother Miriam's sudden funeral. It's a true blessing to witness your holy work, Sister Ada. I pray Isaac can rest in peace. How long did Isaac study under you? Did you know him well? He was a fine apprentice, a ready mind and willing soul. I will mourn him in my own way. But I must admit, the prospect of witnessing an exorcism is an unexpected silver lining. If I find you guilty, Father Augustine, you'll find the experience to be unpleasant. Tell me now, what happened this afternoon? Leave nothing out. I began by taking an afternoon stroll.
I arrived at the graveyard with Isaac for Mother Miriam's funeral. Isaac headed to the mortuary on a minor errand. Then I passed through the graveyard until I saw the statue of Saint Walpurga. What craftsmanship, and so well maintained. Glorious. For most of the afternoon, I was walking through the graveyard, merely observing and admiring.
As one does in graveyards.
At sunset, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac. I was surprised to find an open grave with something inside. Isaac. I was horrified to discover that it was Isaac's dead body. That's when I called for help.
I don't have a very strong read on the person, but devout and devout and capable are probably the first two things that would come to mind. Angry Cat. Tell me, who is Augustine the Scholar? A scholar who researches demons and other aether technology, helping Abbot Gregory prepare for the Great Mass tonight. My name is Augustine. I'm a scholar primarily of demons and aether technology. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I think I'm just going to get the testimony from everyone before I start talking to them about evidence.
Praise Ain Soph. You must be the famed exorcist. It is an honor, sister.
Embalmer at the mortuary, responsible for preparing the bodies for burial and administrative tasks, such as scheduling burials.
I'm Nerissa, and I serve Ain Soph by preparing the dead for burial. I take pleasure in providing cleanliness and comfort for bodies after their souls have departed.
I see. Nerissa, how did you know the victim?
Not at all. The first time I saw him, he was curled in that grave, dirty and bloody.
Okay, well, that's already got
afternoon,
interesting.
I prepared Mother Miriam's body for burial. There isn't much else to tell. Early this afternoon, I informed Abraham of the funeral scheduled for this evening. Grave to tell. Once Abraham left, I started preparing the body for burial. I was alone the entire time. No one came by. Mid-afternoon, Abraham barged into the mortuary, bellowing that the grave is now ready. I sent him away to focus. After Abraham's disturbance, I completed the embalming to the best of my humble abilities. just after dark, I heard a scream from the back field. A dead body was found.
Very little of the technology has been described, Angry Cat. There are little hints that you get from the evidence, but the setting, we're learning more about the setting as we play the game, which I like. I don't know. I sometimes feel like I'm going to be given an exam if a game like gives me a big, info dump about every detail of the world. I tend to like it when they reveal stuff like that through moments. Okay, so there's a couple of really big contradictions that we will, we'll clearly have to deal with. But at this point, I think I want to just get all the details, and then I can talk with people. Sure.
Release me! I had nothing to do with that boy.
As gravekeeper, his responsibilities include the upkeep of the cemetery grounds and preserving graves for burials. The heavily calloused hands at his sides reveals that it is an arduous job.
You must be Abraham, the Gravetender.
I am. I've worked here for 30 years, worked hard without complaint. Look around you, every bush trimmed, every headstone polished because of me. But what about the... I've done all that is asked of me and more. Yet the moment something goes wrong, I'm the one blamed? It's not personal. Even the most steadfast among us may fall prey to Lucifer's whispers, Abraham. You dug the grave in which the victim was found, didn't you? Actually, I didn't dig anything today. Then who did? How would I know? I've been busy, working, as always.
As the Gravetender, any crimes that took place here are your responsibility. If you are truly innocent, hide nothing, and tell me what happened. We'll find the truth together.
I spent the early afternoon tending to the bushes by the mortuary.
So I'm curious to see whether or not... Yeah, so it looks like we don't have any indication that the student actually went up the stairs.
When I headed back to the mortuary, Nerissa told me there was nothing else special to do for the day. So I left her to her work. I walked through the mortuary, then headed downhill towards the benches. I spent the remainder of the afternoon resting on a bench. Suddenly, I heard someone call for help from the back field. I ran over, surprised to see a dead body in the grave.
All right, so the first thing I want to deal with is this idea of why we can't account for Isaac not being present on the stairs. Isaac was my apprentice. He had such potential, it breaks my heart to know that it will never be reached. I only knew her by reputation. This is about Miriam. I only knew her by reputation. Abbot Gregory spoke very highly of her. My name is Augustine. I am a scholar, primarily of demons and ether technology. I had never seen her before, but she rushed from the mortuary when I called for help. She's reputedly quite perceptive and reliable. She probably has more insight to help you with than I. I assume he keeps the grounds, but no other. But other than the statue, I don't see there's much to do. All right.
I arrived at the graveyard with Isaac for Mother Miriam's funeral. Isaac headed to the mortuary on a minor errand.
Indeed. Were you close to her father? No, but the abbot was too busy with mass preparations to hold her funeral, so I was trusted with the task. Okay. It's preserved in remarkable condition. Marvelous craftsmanship too. Shame that the family has become disgraced. I don't know if I should be asking about... So because I'm conscious about the... because I'm conscious about the fact that there's achievements related to asking all the questions, I don't think I want to blast through everything. Let's do power. Ask about the ether scanner. This is my ether scanner. I used it to record images and parse them into glyphs. Okay, interesting. That'll give me something to work with, I think. And what about the statue? Ah, good old Saint Walpurgia. Are you quizzing me about your own patron saint? I'm asking what it means to you, Father. Very well. It honors her final victory against Lucifer in the Abbey's chapel, a true holy site. For 111 years, no demons have been sighted in our world until today. 7. I arrived at the graveyard with Isaac and okay. I don't quite know what you're asking. Okay, so with that in mind, if we can't contradict the arrive for funeral, let's ask him. She insists that no one came? How strange. I sent Isaac to the mortuary. I couldn't tell you if she did this or not. I never set foot in the mortuary. Okay, well, that just tells us that we should be talking with Nerissa then.
Once Abraham left,
no one came by at all? Nobody, which was perfect because I need the silence to focus. Lies, Nerissa. I really like how direct she is with this. Father Augustine saw you speak to Isaac by the entrance of the mortuary. Isaac entered the mortuary. Admit it. Very well, there's no use hiding it. Please know that nothing untoward happened. The victim only stopped by for a moment. Okay. Memory found in Nerissa's sanctum. She grew up during a great famine, feeding on anything that she could find. She eventually found sustenance, but at what cost? Without faith, I could never have persevered through those days. I am ever grateful to Ein Sof and the kind souls of the church. Right.
Early this afternoon, I informed Abraham of the funeral scheduled for this evening. Grave to tell. The truth is that the apprentice did come by. He asked for a bouquet for the funeral later that day. When I showed him the bouquet, he held it for a moment and then threw it on the floor. I suppose it wasn't to his master's tastes. I forgot to pick it back up. Then the boy asked to be taken to the rear fields before the funeral, so I led him out the back exit. Mid-afternoon, Abraham barged into the mortuary, bellowing that the grave is now ready. I sent him away to focus. After Abraham's disturbance, I completed the embalming to the best of my humble abilities.
Okay, so let's figure out exactly what's going on
Abraham
here.
Barged into the mortuary, bellowing that the grave is now ready. I sent him away to focus.
I guess there's no real contradiction here because it's just a difference in terms of how they presented. At some point I need to account for the footprints.
He held it for a moment and then threw it on the floor. I suppose it wasn't to his master's tastes. I forgot to pick it back up.
I'm going to make a guess here that these are probably going to be the gravekeepers. But I know now to ask Augustine about the flowers. It's beautiful. Was it with Isaac? I had asked him to fetch me a bouquet. Strange. Huh.
Then I passed through the graveyard until I
have no reason to doubt that she showed the bouquet. but I wonder why Isaac would leave the bouquet at the mortuary. I didn't think he feared my disapproval so much. Perhaps he was more sensitive than I knew. I guess there's no real contradiction with this.
For most of the afternoon, at sunset, I arrived at the graveyard with Isaac for Mother Miriam's funeral.
I prepared these for visitors to the cemetery. You'd be surprised at how often people forget to bring anything to honor their loved ones. That's Mother Miriam's embalmed liver. It seems rather deformed. What happened to it? My apologies, Sister Ada. I must have mishandled it. Organs are very delicate, you know. Due to the disturbances today, I haven't been able to focus properly. Okay.
When I showed him the bouquet, he held it for a moment and then threw it on the floor. I suppose it wasn't to his master's tastes. I forgot to pick it back up.
Yeah, I mean, so there's something off about the fact that Augustine liked the bouquet, but...
Then the boy asked to be taken to the rear field after Abraham's disturbance. I completed the embalming to the best of my humble abilities. Just after dark, I heard a scream from the back field. A dead body was found.
Okay, I don't think we have any... Ah, Mother Miriam, this is the body I was preparing for the funeral tonight. A horrible way to die. At least her inner organs were intact. Why is that good? Alright. So it seems to be that the footprints have something to do... Hang on. This isn't Miriam's liver. This is almost certainly Isaac's. So we've got the footprints, we've got the surgical tool. The footprints go around, drop off the liver, come back. And we don't quite get to see where it ends, I suppose. The grass grows like weeds here. I use that to keep everything tidy and neat, the way a graveyard should be. Notice that. It's my family's old grave. We're not nobility anymore, but the abbey's grounds once belonged to my ancestors. It was all confiscated after my great-uncle Sergius was branded a heretic. Too bad for the rest of us. Maybe it's Einsoff's humor that I work the land now as a laborer. Life has its ups and downs. It's a good job.
I spent the early afternoon tending to the bushes by the mortuary. When I headed back to the mortuary, I spent the early afternoon tending to the bushes by the mortuary.
So he's saying that he made a grave. Not sure how that proves me wrong. All right, so... Basically, I'm just trying to establish the fact that he wasn't tending to the bushes. You might trim hedges most days, but you didn't today, did you? The dirt on your shovel indicates that you did, in truth, dig the grave. That's true. It's a normal part of my job. I shouldn't have lied about it, I know. I worried that if I told the truth, you thought I'd think I killed the boy, but I didn't. When you lie to me, you veil the truth from the eye of Ein Sof. Speak the truth now. There is no room for error in this investigation. Fine, I dug the grave for the funeral, just doing my job, but it was empty when I left it. Well, that's a lot of details, so... integrity. Found in Abraham's sanctum, he values honesty and sincerity, genuinely loathes lying to try and escape accusation. I regret lying. I'm an honest person, but I felt like I had to defend myself somehow from being accused.
Nerissa told me there'd be an urgent funeral in the evening. I'm not usually told who it's for. So I picked up the shovel and went down to the rear plot to dig a new grave. The ground was hard. Took me some time to dig that hole. I took a long break while digging. It's within my rights. There wasn't anyone else around, so it was nice and peaceful. Then I got back to it and finished digging the grave. When the grave was ready, I walked back to the mortuary to let Nerissa know. When I headed back to the mortuary, Nerissa told me there was nothing else special to do for the day. So I left her to her work. I walked through the mortuary, then headed downhill towards the benches.
Okay, so we sort of know what we have there. What I'm trying to look for here is a situation where Augustine might potentially be running into him.
I passed through the grave. For most of the afternoon, I was walking through the graveyard.
Looks like he's pretty specifically avoiding that part of the...
I arrived then. I passed...
When I showed him the book early this afternoon, the truth is that the apprentice did. When I showed him the book early this afternoon, the truth is that the apprentice did come by. He asked when I showed him the bouquet. He held it for a moment and then threw it on the floor. Then the boy asked to be taken to the rear field before the funeral, so I let him out the back exit. Mid-afternoon, Abraham barged into the mortuary, bellowing that the grave is now ready. I sent him away to focus. Then the boy asked to be taken to the rear field before the funeral, so I let him out the back exit. Mid-afternoon, after Abraham's disturbance, I completed the embalming to the best of my humble abilities. Mid-afternoon, Abraham barged in. After Abraham's disturbance, I completed the embalming to the best of my humble abilities.
I apologize for the filth. Normally the mortuary is kept pristine, I assure you, but today is hardly a normal day. I found your multi-tool, Nerissa. I'm truly grateful, Sister Ada. Where did you find this? It was lying in the grass near the rear staircase. Impossible, unless someone else had stolen it. Surely Abraham couldn't do such a thing. That's definitely Nerissa's. I've seen her using it at the table many times, getting the dead ready to rest. I suppose it cuts and injects and repairs? I've never used one myself. That's my shovel, built to last. Good workmanship. I usually leave it in the mortuary when I'm not using it. Okay. There's something about the fact that he's holding the sickle after making the grave that makes me a little suspicious. Notice that? It's my family's old grave. We're not nobility anymore, but the abbey ground... Oh, right, okay, we already got that. Nerissa makes bouquets from a flower garden nearby. Visitors sometimes use them as offerings at the graves. Alright, let's ask him about the footprints. Can't be my footprints. It's true that I went inside the mortuary after working outside, but that was before the rain. Okay. Let's see if we can establish that Nerissa's gone outside. I'm still a little, I'm not quite sure how we're pinning anything on Augustine, to be honest, but let's try and get whatever bits we can.
Then the boy asked to be taken to the rear field after Abraham's disturbance. I completed the embalming to the best of my humble abilities. Then the boy asked to be taken to the rear fields before the funeral, so I...
Fair enough. Oh, I remember. I was gonna ask. Abraham about the. I don't know what that is. Why would someone put that on a grave? Okay. I guess I can't. I have to talk to people to see where everyone is. So what I want to see now is to see, basically, with the with Augustine taking a stroll and Abraham on the benches.
Then headed downhill towards the benches. I spent the remainder. I walked through the mortuary. I spent the remainder of the afternoon. I walked through the mortuary. I spent the remainder of the afternoon resting on a bench.
At sunset, for most of the afternoon, I was walking through the graveyard, merely observing and admiring. At sunset, for most of the afternoon, I was walking through the graveyard, merely observing and admiring.
So presumably at this point, or sorry, I keep forgetting I have to be able to talk to, I should be able to talk with people about, maybe it was. I was elsewhere at the time. I don't think that's true. You didn't run into anyone? No, no one passed me.
I spent the remainder of the
Were you there until someone called for help? That's right. All right. Now we've got something we can take to Augustine.
For most of the afternoon, I was walking through the graveyard, merely observing and...
Interesting. Is that what he claims? Fascinating. That is a lengthy stroll. Tell me more about what you were doing. You doubt me? Show me proof that I was doing something else. During your so-called stroll, did you drop this by any chance? I found it placed in front of a gravestone. What were you doing with it? This has nothing to do with Isaac's death. I shall be the judge of that. Tell me what you were doing. I was using that scanner to recover a lost hymn for Abbot Gregory to use in tonight's Mass. The last record of it is etched upon one of these gravestones. Well, that definitely broke it up.
It took me a little while, but I thought then I passed through the graveyard until I saw the statue of Saint Walpurgia.
I don't know which one I said.
What craftsmanship, and so well maintained. It took me a little while, but I found it. The grave of Sergius.
Okay, so this is the heretic.
I placed my scanner in front of the gravestone. It would take some time to decode the etchings. Then I saw a stranger pass by. He was tall, barrel-chested. I think he was the groundskeeper.
Afterwards, I waited by the grave for my scanner to complete its task. It was taking longer than I expected, so I had to leave it.
When the sun was setting, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac and begin the funeral. At sunset,
Well.
I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac. I was surprised to find an open grave with something inside.
Found in Augustine's sanctum, Augustine is unimpressed by his apprentice Isaac's recent research, a mediocre effort for someone with such potential. Isaac could have been an eminent scholar if only he was more disciplined and rigorous in his thinking. I admit that sometimes I felt he was wasting his gift. His death is even more of a waste, of course. All right, so I think our best bet here is to actually find out more about...
At sunset, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac. I was surprised to find an open grave with something inside.
Our best bets are to actually ask Abraham about this. The big challenge is that while we very clearly see Nerissa sort of running off, and we've got a pretty good indication about we got a pretty good indication that something else is going on there. We do need to we need to get it to a point where she's able to, or like where she's going to have to confess. So at least here we can talk to him about his resting on a bench.
The remainder of the afternoon resting on a bench.
You were there until someone called for help? That's right. Lies. You didn't walk through the mortuary after speaking with Nerissa. You passed by the grave. Augustine saw you coming from the back fields. Fine, I didn't walk through the back fields, past a grave I dug. People have always blamed me for things I didn't do, so I didn't think you'd believe me. I'm sorry. I haven't said I believe you yet, but we'll see. What was in the grave when you passed by it? Nothing. There was no body, no blood. Nothing. I don't know what you expect to find from the etchings, but it's not nothing but trouble. I didn't see him myself. I was busy with the headstone. But it makes sense, doesn't it? It's the only time he could have headed towards the grave. Okay, this is interesting. So he says here that he was busy with the headstone. We clearly haven't established that he has been working with the headstone, so... Let's see... This is the challenge now that I know there's a contradiction somewhere here. Father Augustine claims that he saw you kneeling by the headstone. Admit it, Abraham, you weren't resting at all. Fine, I had to tend to the grass around the graves. I didn't mention it because I thought it would make me look suspicious. And now you've made yourself even more suspicious. Amend your testimony. Last scion. Well, I guess we already knew that. Oh, and grief. I guess we didn't look at the last lie. Founded Abraham's sanctum as the last descendant of a disgraced noble lineage, Abraham feels owed his family's legacy. About 100 years ago, the church was decided Sergius, my great uncle. Oh, sorry. The church decided Sergius, my great uncle, was a heretic, which I suppose he was. But ever since, they've persecuted my family, confiscated everything we've owned, noble to laborers overnight. I'm all that's left of Sergius's line. I took this job somehow keep working on my ancestral lands one way or another. I was bitter when I started out, but I've discovered the work suits me. Maybe it was Ainsof's plan all along. I'll never forget that night. Someone torched our home, trying to burn us alive. Of course, the guards never caught the arsonist. How could they, when they're it was almost certainly one of their own. Found in Abraham's sanctuary, though it was 100 years ago, Abraham mourns his family's fortunes, so quickly reducing their status. All right, so let's see his account.
I walked back to the mortuary to let Nerissa know.
Pardon?
When I passed by the grave, it was still empty, ready for the funeral. I walked through the walls to reach the front field. I suppose that's when the scholar saw me. I had a sickle with me because I wanted to trim the grass around a grave in the front field.
It's not a whole lot. I should have just skipped over this, but. Okay. I'm not sure there's a whole lot more that I can take. Yeah, I'm not sure there's a whole lot more that I can take out of this. Story. Maybe another chat with Augustine about his about Isaac's body. His face. It's as if he just fell asleep, but how could this be? He had no enemies. Is it possible I was the intended target? Horrifying to consider. This was in Mother Miriam's body. I've conducted several anatomical studies, and I've never seen an organ mangled this way. So I'm thinking there's a possibility that Nerissa messed something up and went to take the liver as a replacement. But obviously this stuff is hard to see. Mother Miriam's remains. I hear the accident was unsightly. I hope for a closed coffin ceremony.
It took me a little while. Then, afterwards, I waited by the... When the sun was setting, at sunset, I walked...
Alright, so I've got a bunch of verifications from Abraham. Technically, no verifications for this, but like when it comes down to it, so where are the possibilities for Isaac's death? We sort of know, we verified greeting Isaac here. We don't actually know what happened with the bouquet taken to the... So basically the murder can kind of be anywhere around here. And the fact that we have... the fact that we sort of see Nerissa running from the body sort of around this area. Actually, I guess this was discovered the grave, so I guess the potential window for the murder is somewhere in this area. I actually don't know where I was going with that. So, anyways, I think talking with Nerissa, they're the most. Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to say something about the. I was going to say something about the possibility of Abraham committing the murder. So, you know, we know the two saw each other here. We don't necessarily know when it was raining, but let's allow for the possibility right now that these are not his footprints. We'll take his word for that. So again, the likely case for the murder is somewhere along these lines. Which of course means that, like, we've verified his behavior in the most likely time where the murders happened. The fact that we haven't verified these doesn't really mean a whole lot. The big challenge is finding out what's going on with the preparations. Do you consider your work complete then? I did my best given the circumstances. I always do my best, sister. This liver is still bloody. How could you possibly claim that it is ready for burial? I couldn't finish the burial preparations in time because I misplaced my surgical tool. I searched all over the mortuary for it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Well, this is definitely going to be...
Abraham barged into the mortuary, bellowing that the grave is now ready. I sent him away to focus. After Abraham left, I noticed that my multi-tool wasn't in my pocket. I searched all over the mortuary for it, but it was missing.
So this is where I'll do the contradiction first, because of where we found the multi-tool. If she said that she wasn't outside, then... Well, I mean, I guess somebody could have taken it, but...
I did what I could without making new incisions, but that made things slower and messier. I'm not pleased with the results. After Abraham left, I...
They're really selling me on this whole cannibal thing. Found in Nerissa's sanctum enjoys exotic cuts of meat, especially fresh entrails and organs. Perhaps I enjoy meat too much. But everyone has a soft spot for something, don't they? Of course, that doesn't necessarily make her a murderer. Thank you for finding it. I had difficulty finishing the embalming without it. Alright, so that's technically not a...
I did what I could without making new incisions, but that made...
Explain these muddy footprints, Nerissa. They indicate that someone left and returned to the mortuary during the rain. Given that Father Augustine remained outside and that Abraham left before the rain, these must be your footprints. I'm sorry, Sister Ada, for the lies and for the filth. I can't wait to clean it up. I admit that I did step outside briefly and search for the multi-tool. But since it was raining, I couldn't find anything, so the embalming remained sadly unfinished.
After Abraham left, I noticed that my multi-tool wasn't in my pocket. I searched all over them. I was desperate to find the tool to finish my work. I tried searching outside, but I couldn't find anything in the rain. I did what I could without making new incisions, but that made things slower and messier. I'm not pleased with the results. After Abraham left...
So I'm just trying to think. We probably don't...
I placed then. Then I saw a stranger pass by. Afterwards,
yeah, so
I saw a stranger.
Abraham would be out of...
After Abraham, I was desperate to find the tool.
The shoe drops. Found in Nerissa's sanctum a deep temptation to devour human flesh. How long has she felt this hunger? How long has she been felt this hunger? It's a terrible tendency of mine, but it's harmless, I assure you. I only nibble at the entrails that no one would want.
I did what I was desperate to find the tool to finish my work. I tried searching outside, but I couldn't find anything in the rain.
I think that, yeah. I'm trying to make the connection to the wound on the body. Yeah, this is... I'm grasping at straws here. Now that's why he took his shovel with him. That doesn't make any sense. I was indoors at the time. I couldn't see what he was doing outside.
I did what I was desperate to find the tool to finish my work. I did what I could without making new incisions. I was desperate to find the tool to finish my work. I did what I could without making new incisions.
I feel like there's more that I can get out of this given what we... given what we know about where this thing was found. So it doesn't seem like she's walked far enough to make this happen. Identified as Mother Miriam, there's a large incision down her stomach. Judging from the uneven coloring and chemical scent, she appears partially embalmed. The apprentice's youthful face is serene above his cleanly slit throat, with no bruising. However, an angry scar runs across his stomach. Hey, Sean, how you doing? Have you checked this game out at all? It's a neat one. We're on the second mission. So the first mission is basically the one that they released as a demo. Although obviously now you can take it to the accusation stage. The second one actually feels quite a bit more challenging. I'm liking sort of the ramp up in difficulty, because the big challenge is that now I've got something more of a timeline. We've definitely had the dominoes fall in terms of the investigation, but I'll admit I'm having some difficulty in terms of finding out who the murderer is. So, the fact that this person's a cannibal doesn't necessarily mean they're a murderer, although obviously the most likely circumstance would be, the murder takes place inside the building here, and the body's taken outside. The fact that it's a clean wound suggests that the sickle is potentially the murder weapon, although I guess it says it isn't bloody. But again, the challenge that I'm having right now is so Nerissa's probably the most likely given what we know right now. But I'm really not feeling all that comfortable in terms of who I can pin this stuff with. We'll see if Virgil has something. I think Virgil's where you go if you're lost in the... Of the three suspects, only Father Augustine has a personal connection to the victim. Perhaps this was a crime of opportunity. The victim may have been in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I arrived at the graveyard with Isaac for Mother Miriam's funeral. Isaac headed to the mortuary on a minor errand. Then I passed through the graveyard until I saw the statue of Saint Walpurga. What craftsmanship, and so well maintained. It took me a little while, but I found it. The grave of Sergius. I placed my scanner in front of the gravestone. It would take some time to decode the etchings. Then I saw a stranger pass by.
Afterwards, I waited by the grave for my scanner to complete its task. It was taking...
When the sun was setting, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac and begin the funeral. At sunset, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac. I was surprised to find an open grave with something inside. When the sun was setting, I wandered to the back area...
Yeah. I don't know if this counts as a contradiction, but my path has not crossed one of these devices before. It must be a tool of some sort, but for what purpose I can only guess. I'm trying to make the connection with... I couldn't tell you if she did this or not. I never set foot in the mortuary. I was still in the front fields of the graveyard, so I don't know if I saw her then. What were you trying to decode? According to my research, Sergius was buried with the last record of the lost hymn of communion. Unfortunately, it's written in an ancient script that even I can't read. It was obscure even in Sergius's time. It's part of my research to reconstruct some of the data that was lost or suppressed after Sergius's condemnation.
When the sun was setting, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac and begin the funeral. At sunset, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac. I was surprised to find an open grave with something inside.
Wait, I found the grave unready for the ceremony. Did you see anyone? No, I was the only one near the grave. That's a lie. There was a body. No. It might mean he might just be referring to the fact that there was a body.
When the sun was setting, it took me a little while, but I found it. Then I passed through the graveyard until I saw...
Then I got back to it and finished digging. When the grave was ready, I walked back to the... Then I got back to it and finished digging the grave.
Well, if the contradiction doesn't work one way, then I suppose...
Nerissa told the ground. Then I got back to it and finished digging the grave.
Okay. I'm making too much of that, making too much of, I mean, the status of the grave being finished should be something that's kind of established common knowledge, but there's the question about wanting to tell the game something and the game reading the contradiction in another way. I'm also trying to make some kind of a connection, so I guess maybe this really is the liver. But yeah, I'm trying to come up with this connection in terms of the fact that Nerissa seems to be running from the grave. So, if we take a look at, not Abraham, Augustine's...
Afterwards, when the sun was setting, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac and begin the funeral.
So, somewhere here, we've got try to finish embalming
At sunset,
versus...
I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac. When the sun was setting,
I was indoors at the time, couldn't see. He was too far away to see. Besides, I was too busy trying to find the multi-tool. I was indoors at the time, I couldn't see what he was doing outside. Hi, Izzy Stardust. No, I would much prefer to do this on my own. How did you hope to finish embalming without your tool? Especially because the game just came out, so I'm trying to get people to buy it. I started pulling the organs out with my hands and sealing the incisions with bandages. It seemed better than sitting on my hands. I have a reputation to protect. I'm sorry it upsets you that I'm not playing it the right way, but I guess some of the fun of puzzle games is going down different paths than what other people think.
After Abraham left, I noticed that my multi-tool wasn't in my pocket. I searched all over the mortuary for it, but it was missing. I was desperate to find the tool. I did what I could without making new incisions, but I was desperate to find the tool to finish my work. I tried searching outside. I did what I could without making new incisions, but that made things slower.
It would be really
messier.
weird to use the
I'm not pleased
footprints
with the
again.
result. I did what I could without making new incisions, but I was desperate to find the tool to finish my work. I tried searching outside, but I couldn't find anything in the rain.
Again, I'm kind of taking a few flyers on these ones. So it's got to be testimony that makes this a contradiction. Yeah, this is the weird one when he says I was indoors at the time.
I did what... I was desperate to find the tool to finish my work. I tried searching outside, but I couldn't find anything in the rain.
Abram has been a groundskeeper at St. Walpurgia's for years. He keeps to himself, just as well. I prefer not to be interrupted in my work. I'm Narissa, the embalmer at this mortuary. I pray that I'm known for my cleanliness and thoroughness. He discovered the body. I don't believe I've ever met him before. Mother Miriam was beloved by everyone at St. Walpurgis. I am honored to prepare her body for burial. He was found in the grave, correct? How dreadful. So young, too. I'd never seen him prior to today.
When I showed him the bouquet, he held it for a moment and then threw it on the floor. I suppose it wasn't to his master's tastes. I forgot to pick it back up.
I prepare these for visitors. You'd be surprised how often people forget to bring anything to honor their loved ones. Let's maybe see what Abraham has to say about some of these other details. Well, it just came out today. Actually, I should put the link in chat for people again. So I was given a key from Kid Fox to show this thing off. I'm enjoying it just because, again, the ramp up in difficulty. I feel like the first level did a good job of introducing the basics. And then the difficulty has definitely ramped up where it's maybe not so obvious in terms of where everything's going. It is, so it doesn't, like, it's not like it's procedurally generating mysteries for you. I think, again, I read the Sid Meier memoir. I think he was talking about how Covert Action apparently tried to, like, procedurally generate missions to work on, and it didn't really work out. But it's pretty clear that there's some meat on this. Like, if you, I'm sure if you're the type of person who like just goes and looks at walkthroughs for the game, you're gonna like say, well, why is it so short? And I'm like, well, because you get one chance to solve this stuff. But I don't know. I'm very engaged. I will admit, like, I'm a little. Do you know how many mysteries there are in the game? Achievements might say. So we've got Two Brothers Investigator, Graveyard Investigator, Chapel Investigator, Eye of Ain Soph, and 2 hidden achievements. I don't think it actually says how many mysteries there are. But maybe the ad copy will say. So, about the game. Everyone is a suspect. Unmask their lies. Choose one to purge. Lucifer Within Us asks you to solve player-directed, story-rich mysteries with your wits, making observations and deductions in a world of demonic possession and invasive soul-scanning technology from the creator of the Shrouded Isle. Investigate timelines. Question your subjects. Watch their movements and testimonies closely, as reconstruction may be based on lies. Use contradictions and clues from your own hypothesis. Who is lying and why? Who is possessed? You must decide what is truth for yourself based on the evidence presented. Real mystery solving. No hidden plot twists, no QTEs, no random puzzles or mini-games. Just you and the information. Excuse me. In all 3 cases, don't act like a detective, be the detective. Finding the murderer will require true understanding of the case, not just following the story. Wow, if it's just 3. I mean, this makes sense why this is a challenging one then. Banish demonic AI. Enter the minds of citizens to gain insight into what they don't want you to know. Dig through their subconscious and accuse the guilty in order to cast out their demons for the good of the Inquisition. Any damage done to a citizen's psyche is the result of quarantine, exorcism, or rehabilitation as a consequence of their own immortality. Expose the false utopia. Through centuries of indoctrination, humanity is taught to think pure thoughts and speak true words, untainted by falsehoods and delusions. Yet beneath this facade of purity, you find dark desires stir deep within people's heart, yearning for release. About as a digital exorcist working for the Church of Ain Soph's Inquisition, it is your duty to find sinners and ensure continued harmony. Digital demons corrupt the network. The network cause human hosts to act on secret desires and sins, even unto murder. Discover the one truth to determine which citizens are infected and to exorcise the possessed. Built on the rubble of the old world, the last human city has become a utopia of progress, digitization, and art. The church guides citizens towards advancement and truth with the aid of a digital consciousness network. Use all the tools at your disposal to find the truth, whatever it may hide, and beware the lies you tell yourself. Mature content description may include depictions of, or textual reference to violence, self-harm, cannibalism, and or substance use. So yeah, I mean, it says 3 cases. When I take a look at the achievements, so graveyard interviewer, chapel interviewer, 2 brothers interviewer, graveyard, chapel, 2 brothers. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. It's three cases. Cannibalism and substance use is a bit of a murder and jaywalking. But I mean,
That was hard. Took me some time to dig that hole.
it definitely makes sense then why I'm finding this mystery so I kind of thought that there would be a bunch of like little fragmentary mysteries, but like if I got through, I guess 2 brothers was like 2 hours when I did the demo. This one, I guess we're approaching about 2 hours, so I'd be interested in seeing what the playtime is. What'll really interest me, actually, is I'm curious about the reviews, if anybody's saying it's too short. My suspicion is they're going to be saying it's too hard. Okay, yeah, there are a couple saying that it's short. I will admit, I'm a little surprised at, I mean, so I talk a lot, so that will explain the difference in terms of the time that it takes. But, like, there are people here claiming that they've finished the game within the time that, claiming that they finished the time in like, less than it's taken me to stream this game. I mean, maybe they're, I don't know if it's really good at it or if they're just getting a walkthrough or something like that. But anyways, let's get back to focusing on the mystery of the game, not the mystery of the of people's reactions to it. Okay, you know what? I need a minute to stop and smell the roses. Right, we were going to ask him about the bouquet. Narissa makes bouquets from a flower garden nearby. Visitors sometimes use them as offering at the graves. That statue is always an ordeal to clean, 100-some-odd years old already, as you probably know. Birds love making a mess on her head. I keep her sparkling clean, almost out of spite. Notice that? It's my family's old grave. We're not nobility anymore, but the abbey's grounds once belonged to my ancestors. It was all confiscated after my great-uncle Sergius was branded a heretic. Too bad for the rest of us. Maybe it's Ansof's humor that I work the land now as a laborer. Life has its ups and downs. It's a good job. I don't know anything about this. Narissa handles all the scheduling and tells me when I need to do something. I didn't say it did prove you wrong. I'll never forget. Right, we already got. Yeah, this is a little odd. I regret lying. I'm an honest person, but I felt like I had to defend myself somehow from being accused. All right, you know what? Let's just ask all the details. Grass grows like weeds here. I use that to keep everything tidy and neat, the way a graveyard should be. Statue. Okay, we got that. I don't know what that is. Why would someone put that on a grave? Are you sure it wasn't an accident? It seems so strange to have a murder after all these years without any. Unfortunately, we're sure, Abraham, this was a demon's work. A pity, and the boy's so young too. I suppose it's part of Ainsof's will somehow. It's definitely Narissa's. I've seen her using it at her table many times, getting the dead ready to rest. Suppose it cuts, injects, and repairs. I've never used one myself. That's my shovel, built to last. Good workmanship. I usually leave it in the mortuary when I'm not using it. These can't be my footprints. It's true that I went inside the mortuary after working outside, but that was before the rain. Okay, we've got the bouquets. You say that's a liver? If it is, it looks like a dog got to it. I usually only see the bodies when they're all cleaned up. Narissa must not have finished with this one yet. Okay. This gives us a little bit, but not quite enough for me to make any... Or I should get his opinions on the other people as well. This poor boy in the grave? Such a shame. I hadn't seen him while he was alive. Is that who the grave's for? If you say so, she must have been important to have a plot here. Not only speaking badly of others behind their backs, but honestly, he gives me the creeps. Narissa handles all the business in the mortuary and tells me when there's things that need doing. We both take pride in our work, and we don't bother each other much. It suits me fine. I'm Abraham, the groundskeeper here. I polish the headstones, trim the bushes, that kind of thing. I've been doing this for many years. It's a good job. Quiet. Peaceful even on most days. Isaac was my apprentice. He had such potential. It breaks my heart to know that it will never be reached. I only know her by reputation. Abbot Gregory spoke very highly of her. My name is Augustine. I am a scholar, primarily of demons and ether technology. I had never seen her before, but she rushed from the mortuary when I called for help. She's reputedly quite perceptive and reliable. She probably has more insight to help you with than I. I assume he keeps the grounds, but other than the statue, I don't see that there's much to do. It's preserved in remarkable condition. Marvelous craftsmanship, too. A shame the family became disgraced. That tall man with a beard, I think I saw him holding it at one point. Ah, good old Saint Walpurgia. Are you quizzing me about your own patron saint? I'm asking what it means to you, Father. Very well. It honors her final victory against Lucifer in the Abbey's chapel, a true holy site. For 111 years, no demons have been sighted in our world, until today. That's my ether scanner. I use it to record images and parse them into glyphs. His face. It's as if he just fell asleep, but how could he be? How could this be? He had no enemies. Is it possible I was the intended target? Horrifying to consider. My path has not crossed one of these devices before. It must be a tool of some sort, but for what purpose I can only guess. Even if I had seen that, it looks far too heavy for me to have used. Footprints in the mortuary. Unfortunately, I know nothing about this. Perhaps they're Isaac's? It's beautiful. Was it with Isaac? I had asked him to fetch me a bouquet. Strange. Yes, as you can see, Mother Miriam's funeral is scheduled here. I've come to pay my respects. The ceremony was rushed, but I promised the abbot I'd do right by her. Was it in Mother Miriam's bodies? I've conducted several anatomical studies, and I've never seen an organ mangled this way. Mother Miriam's remains? I heard the accident was unsightly. I had hoped for a closed coffin ceremony. The other thing that we can ask him about is the other thing we can ask him about is Abraham's testimony.
I arrived at the grave. Then I passed.
I didn't see him do this myself, but there was a freshly dug grave in rear field.
I placed. Then,
that's where I saw him.
By the grave.
I don't recall exactly what he was doing. He was near the grave, however.
I was horrified to discover that it was.
And he arrived from the front field when I called. Okay. What were you trying to decode? According to my research, Sergius was buried with the last record of the lost hymn of communion. Unfortunately, it's written in an ancient script that even I can't read. It was obscure in Sergius's time. It was part of my research to reconstruct some of the data that was lost or suppressed after Sergius's condemnation. Was there something particular about this statue that caught your eye? Given its age, it's been immaculately maintained. The groundskeeper must be skilled. What about search for the grave? How did you find the grave of Sergius? Are you certain it is the heretic's resting place? I'm certain. It's identifiable by a unique set of etchings on this gravestone. All right, so it just occurred to me that we don't actually have any verification if it's the nobles. Wait, really?
I placed my scanner in front of the grave.
Because if Sergi, like, this is the thing that weirds me out, right? This is, we've got the illustrious family. Huh. I thought it was basically he's taking the scan in the wrong, of the wrong grave, but I guess not.
When the grave was...
He's looking for Sergius's grave? What does he want with it? I don't know exactly what he expects to find from the etchings, but it's nothing but trouble.
I took a long...
Maybe he was. I was elsewhere at the time. Okay. So I'm going to have to bang my head against the wall of Nerissa again. It's also possible that there's evidence somewhere that I'm missing, but I don't think that's true. Abraham takes extra care in maintaining that grave. I often spot him standing over it. That's Abraham's sickle for cutting back the grass. Any tools are stored in the mortuary's back room, but I have no reason to even touch them. May St. Walpurgia watch over us all today. Scanner? I don't use anything like that for my work. Can we perform an autopsy on the victim's body, Nerissa? I have your multi-tool here. Is that truly necessary, Sister Ada? The victim's cause of death is quite clearly from having his throat slit. There's something peculiar within that abdominal scar. Let's reopen it and see what lies within. As you wish, sister. Please give me a moment. There, it's ready. Good, let's have a closer look. What's this? His liver. It's loose. It's not attached to the rest of his organs at all. There we go. Thank you. I mean, again, this is the big thing. I do recommend that people people check out the game on its own as well, because, like, my view is if people don't opt into it, it winds up ruining the game for both. But, you know, more importantly too, like, it's an interesting world. It's one where I think people want to kick around and see what's going on. So. Ah, gotcha. Oh, that's what wish lists are for. That's the big thing I've been encouraging people to. Obviously, there's the statement, price is what you pay, value is what you get. And it's funny, I think Amazon actually used to try to do this. So, like, there's the concept of price discrimination. And, like, I'm from BC in Canada. So in, like, BC... You've got one insurance provider. Although, I mean, really, like, insurance is so, like, insurance is a perfect example of a case where you can have price discrimination. And in BC, it's particularly bad because there's one place. It's ICBC, which is kind of a crown corporation to handle the insurance. And like most car insurance, right, they can take your age, they can take your driving record. They're able to price a policy specifically to you. Now imagine that was the true with cereal, right? They kind of know what your income is, they know what your tastes are, and when you scan your cereal box, you will get a different price than the person behind you who maybe has a different set of like a different set of preferences. People were outraged by Amazon trying to do this. But, you can kind of, like, you can see in both senses why this can be good and not so good. So in one sense, right, somebody who is, like, all about Lucifer. It's like, here's a great example, right? I think we know that it is not the easiest thing in the world to, to make money making games. And we clearly want to see games like Lucifer Within Us made. And so there's one version of this which says, like, there is a subset of people who are reasonably affluent and who are all about Lucifer Within Us. Like, they will get so much value out of playing this game. And so, usually if it's like an NDP politician, usually you'll hear this sort of thing as being they should pay their fair share. And like maybe they get racked up with like a $40 price tag or something like that. And that's fine because they still get more than $40 value out of the game. And then you have someone who maybe really likes mysteries, but let's say like they're in high school and they're working a part-time job. And in addition to saving for college, we say, okay, that person, their ability and their enjoyment out of it, we'll say that's a $5 game. Now, number one, nobody should ever want to give Valve that much information about them. And number two, like, I think even in those circumstances, like I constructed it as like a case where we could imagine it being all right. I think people would still see that as an unfair system. And I mean, there's reasonable debate one way or the other. The big question to me would be, how would you ever be able to make that proper determination? So in the absence of being able to do full-on price discrimination, and we know that if any digital storefront were to try and do this, people would go nuts. The next best that we have is basically sales. And people will buy. So essentially, like, wish listing kind of becomes a little bit of a negotiation in terms of the price at which somebody thinks a game is worth it. And you can sort of see this reflected too. Like, it used to be that games would go and discount themselves quite quickly. Now you have stuff like RimWorld, which has finally given itself a 10% discount after being out for years. It took 2 months to get your car to get replaced after somebody rear. Yeah, I don't have any nice things to say about ICBC either. But like, to me, I think part of it just comes down to is I figure like playing a game when it comes out is different from playing a game a few years later. Like, you're going to want to play something, and it's usually nice to play new games that are interesting than it is to play old games. Sometimes old games are perfectly fun too, right? Like, I'm getting into some stuff that had fallen off of my my list for a while. But yeah, like, it's I guess, as close as we can get, wish lists are sort of the best way that we're able to let people kind of figure out the price that works for them. Though there's one thing I forgot to mention, which was in the credits, we saw the Canadian Media Fund on there. I am so happy about the existence of this program. So like, the Canadian Media Fund has financed like Outlast. I don't know if CMF money went into Dead by Daylight. I'm pretty sure it did. But like, Canada has a pot of money. It's not a grant. Like, they expect a return. But this was something that used to be for film. And one thing I really like about the Canadian Media Fund is if you contrast Canadian film, except maybe for Quebec, like, it doesn't travel particularly well. We sort of live in the shadow of, of Hollywood. And despite the fact, having worked in it, we have clearly very talented craftspeople, but we don't necessarily seem to be generating the kind of creative talent that winds up creating uniquely Canadian films. Like, often you'll have people who go to Hollywood to sort of make their careers. That doesn't necessarily seem to be the case for games. It's not just the fact that we have a bunch of people who work either at large companies or are founding their own independent studios. Like, yes, we do have people who are working on other projects and doing a damn good job of it. But Canada has been generating either franchises for large companies or just individual games that have this outsized success on the world stage. And while you can't attribute all of it to the Canadian Media Fund, I do think it's a really interesting contrast to see how Canadian film has always been this thing where people are like, why aren't we able to get this stuff, off the ground? Wherein, on the other hand, with gaming, Canada definitely seems to be punching above its weight in terms of the quality of games that it's going on. Don't forget Ultimate Collector's Editions on the other. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point, because all the blogs that I've written that deal with that are on the other end too, which is, for other games being able to cut them up. The whole thing about DLC is essentially a pricing decision. You can get the lighter version of the game. So I remember people got really, I was one of those people, by the way, really annoyed with Humble when you got the trial version for Call of Duty Black Ops 3, for the Humble, what became Humble Monthly. As it turns out, I didn't really care for Call of Duty Black Ops 3, so, if I had got the full version, I wouldn't have cared for it that much. But, that's kind of considered to be the demo version of the game, despite the fact that I think its original price was $30 or $40. And, of course, now we kind of have an expectation that there's going to be post-release support. And so, as Sean's pointing out, Ultimate Collector's Edition, the price of a game, quote unquote, may not be $60, $70 anymore if you consider a game, quote unquote, to be the game and all the subsequent DLC. The challenge with that, of course, is that the comparison's a really tough one, because even if you ignore quality improvements and such, clearly the amount of material inside of games has grown quite a bit. So, obviously the worst thing you could do would be to take the price and divide it by the number of hours played. I know some people do that. I think that's a terrible measure for games. I did an effort to try and estimate a little bit of that, but in the end, a lot of it's just theoretical, because quality adjustment's really hard to do. You can take Metacritic, but that's not the last word. Anyway, sorry, I'm moving on to other issues, and we've got new evidence, so. Liver, it's loose. It's not attached to the rest of his organs at all. Found in the victim's body, detached from the rest of the organs. Its liver is drained of blood and covered in some sort of chemical. Yeah, this is definitely Miriam's. It's an embalmed liver. You can tell by the patchy coloring. But I have no idea why it would be in the victim's body when he had only just died. Okay.
After Abraham left, I noticed that my...
Yeah, now I'm trying to find out...
I was desperate to find the tool. I did what I could without making new incisions, but that made... I was desperate to find the tool to finish my work.
Drat. Did you need to examine the body further, Sister Ada? No, I doubt there's anything more to discover. Found your multi-tool, Nerissa? I'm truly grateful, Sister Ada. Where did you find this? It was lying in the grass near the rear staircase. Impossible unless someone had stolen it. Surely Abraham couldn't do such a thing. Where was the opportunity to do that? Abraham uses that to dig graves, but it's far too heavy for me to even carry. I apologize for the filth. Normally the mortuary is kept pristine, I assure you, but today is hardly a normal day. We've asked about the bouquets a few times. This is a smaller branch in the cemetery, a quieter space for more wealthy patrons. There are no other burials scheduled for today, or even this week. That is Mother Miriam's embalmed liver. It seems rather deformed. What happened to it? My apologies, Sister Ada. I must have mishandled it. Organs are very delicate, you know. So we can't actually contradict evidence. Mother Miriam, this is the body I was preparing for the funeral tonight. A horrible way to die. At least her inner organs are intact. It's an embalmed liver, you can tell by the patchy coloring. But I have no idea why it would be in the victim's body when he had only just died.
I did what I could without making new incisions, but that made the... I was desperate to find the tool to finish my...
All right, well, let's see what the other people have to say about the liver. Whatever it is, it's embalmed already. That chemical smell is always around the mortuary. Yeah, so this is the problem, is that I'm trying to make the connection to Sister Miriam. Was this from Isaac's body? You must be mistaken, as it's entirely dried out and discolored. Did you notice the muddy footprints in the mortuary, Sister Ada? The rainfall began around dusk, which means the prints were left by someone who walked in after that time. Thanks, Virgil. I suppose I have to do it like on the section that I want to.
Abraham of the funeral scheduled for this evening.
It's a terrible tendency of mine, but it's harmless, I assure you. I only nibble at the entrails that no one would want. Yeah, so we can't contradict the... So, like, my overall guess here is it's Nerissa and possibly Beelzebub who did this, but I don't have enough for... So if I were to do an accusation... I'd never even met the victim before today. Why would I want to kill him? What would I gain? Your austere childhood led you to develop a deep craving for exotic meats, especially with certain rare flesh that had sustained you in a time of need. Working as an embalmer must have tempted you day in and day out. You were virtuous for so long. You would handle the organs as part of preparing the bodies. You could easily imagine the taste, the texture, yet you resisted. Then Isaac arrived and the demon spoke. You could no longer ignore your hunger. A fresh, juicy liver at your fingertips. It would be so much tastier than the cold entrails you'd handled from corpses. All you had to do is slit open his stomach, like you've done hundreds of times before. If you think I did it, then tell me, how could I have done it? Do you see a weapon anywhere? The surgical multi-tool. It's designed for precise incisions into hardened tissue. It would have sliced through a living body with ease. Besides, nothing else could have allowed the killer to seal the wounds on this victim's stomach. Preparing the body occupied the entire afternoon. When could I have done such a thing? You killed Isaac while he was visiting the mortuary to fetch the bouquet. I admit he came by, but he left shortly afterwards. If he died in the mortuary, why was his body found in the grave? Because the body was moved. That was when it happened. If he died in the mortuary, why was his body in the grave? After you dismissed Abraham, you weren't searching for the multi-tool. You dragged the victim's body to the grave, hoping to bury it before anyone arrived. So yeah, I feel kind of bad that I didn't get the rest of the evidence out of it, but...
Ein Sof sees all, Nerissa. You are the only person who could have killed Isaac. Do you deny it?
Curse you, and curse Ein Sof. How can the eye see all? Does it see my suffering? Where was Ein Sof when my family was dying in the street, chewing on leather just to live another day?
The famine was a test, Nerissa. Ein Sof wanted you to demonstrate your faith, your will to live.
Have you ever felt true hunger? When you haven't eaten for days, reality shifts. The body needs.
We all have our challenges set out before us, Nerissa. Some more difficult than others.
Do you think I was the only one that fed on human flesh?
It's not for me to judge what you did back then. That's between you and your confessor. But today, you murdered an innocent youth, so that you could feed on his liver. A daemon has possessed you. Confess, Nerissa. Speak the truth. It is time.
Early this afternoon, I informed Abraham of the funeral scheduled for this evening. Grave to tell. The truth is, that boy did come by. He asked for a bouquet for the funeral later that day. When I brought him to the bouquet table, I don't know what came over me. The hunger clenched my belly suddenly. I've seen the butchers do it. It only took a quick slash to his throat, and he fell to the floor. I knew where to get the best cut. His liver. It was still warm. I couldn't believe the taste. Like nothing I've eaten before. Heavenly. Then, Abraham barged into the mortuary, bellowing that the grave is now ready. I sent him away to focus. My senses were returning, and I cleaned up my mess. I sealed the boy's body, putting the liver from the body I had been embalming inside and sealing it. I carried him to the new grave and quickly tossed him in. I heard someone coming, so I didn't have time to bury him. I was shaking with adrenaline. In my hurry to return to the mortuary, my multi-tool must have slipped out of my apron's pocket. I stored what was left of the liver among the other entrails, hoping to finish it later. I wanted to savor its deep, rich flavors. Sooner than I anticipated, I heard a scream from the backfield. Someone had already discovered the body.
So actually, one thing I'm learning about this, I have a tendency to be very completionist about this sort of stuff. And so I tool around in a lot of dead... So like when you think about the new information that's been presented, it may be that there's stuff with like Augustine or Abraham that are going on, but like clearly we would never have found kills Isaac, devours body, place embalmed liver, move bot. None of this stuff we would have got. Well, okay, maybe the place embalmed liver. Like none of this stuff would have come up through regular conversation. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm getting an idea now about why some people are saying that this game is too short. Because I think if you just treat this as a game where like you click through a bunch of windows, sort of without regard to what the story is or what's going on. Again, this isn't to say people are playing a game right or wrong, but I get a feeling that if you don't sort of throw yourself in and want to like go down the paths and sort of see what's being told, like live in the world a little bit, I suspect that this game actually probably does come that short. Like the mysteries aren't exactly incomprehensible. Augustine is a suspicious character, but he's not someone who, like, it's really hard to pin the murder to him. Abraham and Isaac, because of the story, I suspect there's probably a little bit of a hint. But obviously Nerissa is the one, especially when you sort of see her shadow in the background. Like, I'm pretty sure the game gives you everything you need to know on a plate in terms of being able to solve the mystery. But I also sort of feel like getting the accusation to me is like the most minor part of the process. I kind of want to know the what happened, right? Like, it's actually maybe a good an analogy that I might draw, and I don't think this is this is just me trying to come up with a frame of reference here. If you think about the Alan Moore comic From Hell, which like, it's not really a whodunit. Like, it's more about kind of asking what happened in terms of the Jack the Ripper murder. I mean, that is about a ton of stuff, but like, it's definitely much more about sort of seeing everything that happened around the murder. Like, Augustine has come up twice in the two previous cases. At no point is he at all related to these murders, but he's still an interesting enough character. Abraham exists for more than just someone to throw another accusation out. You have this story about a disgraced family, how the guards are... I mean, this is one interesting concept with the Inquisition, right? You've got guards. There's the suggestion that Abraham was a victim of arson and that the authorities are the ones who are the most likely suspects. And so I have a feeling that that may be the dividing line in terms of when people talk about the length of the game relative to what you get out of it. So, anyways, I think it's pretty clear who what demon we're associating this with.
Nerissa's wretched soul is twisted by demonic influence.
I really like these exorcisms, by the way.
I must speak the daemon's true name. Then the daemon will be cast out and be banished to the ether. Ain Suf, guide me. What daemon has possessed Nerissa?
Obviously, it's Lucifer. Beelzebub the Gluttonous, simple-minded demon that debilitates the host, turning them into feral beasts. The host is compelled to consume stranger and filthier things until nothing remains of their humanity. Columbo's another similar one in that regard. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Where you generally see who did the murder right at the start, but then you have the fun of watching. Yes, absolutely. That's a really good comparison.
Out, Beelzebub! Leave this soul and return whence you came.
No! We must feed! Nerissa, delicious, scrumptious little morsel. We must have more. The hunger is an endless pit. More!
Speak, Beelzebub. Why has your kind returned?
Hunger is a primal need. Just as you feed on lesser life forms, growing them in captivity for slaughter. We feed on you, the meat of your emotions, the marrow of your deepest desires.
You will prey upon us no longer, Beelzebub. Return to the ether, and never come back.
I must obey for now, but we won't be gone too long. Tonight, Lucifer will open the gates of hell. I won't be the only one allowed to feast. Ada, you juicy little morsel, we shall devour you soon. You and all the other delicacies.
Nerissa. Do you hear me, Nerissa? Was I too late? Goodbye, Nerissa. May Ain Suf make you whole again.
So this is the power of an exorcist. I've dreamed of seeing this. It looks a bit different than I imagined, however. What's happening to her?
Ada, look out!
Huh?
Halt, Nerissa! Good. I've stunned her. Are you all right, Sister Ada?
Yes. You came just in time. My thanks, Virgil.
Ain Suf, save us! Another possession! Another killing! How is this possible? Who is responsible? Virgil, you have failed us. How could you allow this to happen?
Unfortunately, Father, I believe you are primarily responsible. We should have listened to Ada. She warned us about the contaminated body, and its demons spread, just as she said.
We must act now. We can't waste any more time bickering about who's to blame. The daemon within Nerissa spoke of Lucifer's return. He walks among us.
It's perverse that they would return now on the holiest of days. Why? Are we being punished?
It doesn't matter why. The Abbey is unsafe, Father. Cancel the Mass. Send the pilgrims home. If you proceed, you are risking all their lives.
No, Father. You must stay the course. We've worked too hard for this moment. I have decoded the ancient hymn of communion. The Mass can proceed as planned.
This is exactly what innocent people say, by the way.
This chance will not come again for another century. It's literally the last chance we have in our lifetimes.
What is the significance of that hymn? Why must it be sung tonight?
According to Augustine's research, it honors Saint Walpurga and her victory in a way uniquely pleasing to Ein Sof.
I protest. But if you absolutely must hold the Mass, at least allow me to guard you at the altar. You are putting yourself in danger. What if you were possessed?
That may be unwise, Father. Surely if things are as dangerous as you say, nobody should be trusted. How do we know this supposed exorcist is not the pawn of Lucifer?
That's absurd! You witnessed the exorcism!
No, I saw her turn a woman into a rabid beast. What really transpired in the ether when she supposedly exorcised these demons? She invokes the demons' names. She knows them more intimately than any of us.
I speak their names to control them and then banish them. You know this.
Or perhaps you are being used by them. How would we know?
The only thing that possesses me is the flame of Ein Sof. I shouldn't have to defend myself.
Actually, what Augustine says makes sense. We should be extra cautious, just in case. I don't want you at the Mass. If you truly believe Lucifer lurks at my abbey, find him. Unmask him. Search the grounds as you like, but stay away from the chapel or I will have you put in a cell. Nothing can be permitted to interrupt the Mass and the hymn. Especially after the events of today. Saint Walpurga deserves to be honored for her victories. Inquisitor, Augustine, come. We have much to prepare. Very wise, Father, as always. Farewell, sister.
It would be best if you were wrong, Ada.
But I'm filled with dread.
That's because it is. Lucifer will strike tonight, Virgil. I only pray he strikes at me instead of at the Mass. Stay vigilant.
Poisoned by Father Augustine against me, Abbot Gregory ordered I remain outside the chapel for his Mass. At midnight, the gathered pilgrims lifted their voices in praise to Ein Sof, but they were cut short by a thunderous crash. Another soul taken. Now, I'm about half an hour past when I would finish. I suspect, given the time it's taken me on the previous ones, I might be able to get it done tonight, but it would be a particularly long cast, and again, I do have a small earache. Plus, again, especially with some of the difficulties I had getting started tonight, I do need to catch up on a few other things that I had set aside. So I think I'm going to save the last mystery, but let's at least see the start.
Virgil, where's Abbot Gregory? What interrupted his Mass?
The abbot. His death was the interruption. A third murder, I'm afraid.
Who could have predicted this?
The lights went out during Mass. Moments later, the statue of Saint Walpurga crashed down from the ceiling, impaling Abbot Gregory with its spear.
An assassination, then. But why? We must determine who is possessed immediately. Examining the facts will reveal Ein Sof's truth. How was the statue held in place?
Due to its weight, we had to rely on using aether-powered restraints to hang it above the altar. Which means the killer must have sabotaged the 2 power generators on the balcony floor. There were only 2 people on the balcony during the Mass. I've detained them for interrogation. I've sent the pilgrims back to town, lest they panic and disturb the evidence.
Excellent work, Virgil. Who are the suspects? You said there were 2.
You already know them. Brother Gideon and Father Augustine.
Since you are a key witness to the events, I will of course hear your testimony as well. May Ein Sof show us the truth behind all of today's events.
And on that note, we'll we'll leave it there. So again, a very big thank you to Kitfox for sending along the key. I don't necessarily get tired of saying, specifically in the case of this company, their community manager, communications director. I'm undervaluing her title. It's been really pleasant to interact with Victoria, and it's, it gets a little repetitive in some senses. Just to say that, some of the first contact that I had was at a time when I really could not, I was really having to turn down just about everything that was being sent my way. But every interaction that I've had with Kitfox, and it's usually with her, has been very pleasant. And one of the differences has basically just been I want to be helpful. I want to make the time. And you would sort of think that, especially for doing sort of professional work, right? Where if you're trying to get someone to play your game, or if you're trying to, interact with someone, you would sort of think that politeness and, professionalism are sort of the order of the day. That's not actually something that you can count on. And so I specifically want to highlight that information because, it's fair to say Kitfox Games is not exactly an unknown company. This is the company, by the way, that's going to be publishing Dwarf Fortress, if you didn't know. And then Boyfriend Dungeon also seems to have gotten a particular amount of attention. Although, the games that they've done before aren't exactly unknown either. Moon Hunters seems to be rather successful. It's a really enjoyable game if you haven't tried it out. The Shrouded Isle, again, that's one that I haven't played, but a lot of people have recommended to me. I think they also did a game called Shattered Planet. And then, of course, there's the one that I think it was the first one that I did through them sending off a key, which was Fit for a King, which was tremendously enjoyable. And then they also published 6 Ages, which is one that I am looking forward to coming back to. So, again, it's not like this is a company that is desperate for people to cover their stuff. But with that in mind, it's definitely been the level of engagement. It hasn't just been that it's pleasant to interact with Kitfox, but that level of interaction has basically been to a point where I kind of want to go above and beyond. I want to make a special effort, which is of course why I'm streaming this on a Thursday, because I was really looking forward to this game. And then on top of that, I think this is a case where I really want to do my best when given those keys. With that in mind, of course, for those of you who might be making a purchase decision based on this, there is an interest at play. I have been given a key. I didn't have to buy this one. And then I can also say that there's a neat project that they were one of the few people to pay attention with me on. And I will be sharing that project when I'm allowed to, but for now, I'm keeping it under wraps. But needless to say, it's a Canadian company, and I've definitely enjoyed being able to sort of learn a little bit more about them and have further interactions. And then, of course, the last thing I wanted to say was the credits to see that Canadian Media Fund logo, because it's, I guess, an example of where things that I find interesting are getting supported through other through our government efforts. So there is one other streamer doing Lucifer within us right now. Normally I would host that, but they already have 193 viewers. So I think if you guys want to see, Lucifer within us, you know where to go. I think I'm going to host Azure Wind tonight because I don't always get a chance to host him. He's doing XCOM 2, and I think he actually does XCOM particularly well. As far as I'm concerned, so I'm going to do Lucifer Within Us tomorrow. If we get it done really quick, then we'll probably just jump back into Mass Effect. Otherwise, we'll spend the rest of the evening going through this game. I'm having a very good time with it. I'm a little surprised that there aren't more mysteries like this, to be honest. And there have been a couple of points of friction where I have an intention. I think it's kind of clear where the story's going, and I'm trying to make the connection that the game wants me to make, and I'm just sort of failing to sort of frame it in the way that the game wants. But I would say as a whole, like the number of times that could potentially happen has actually been a lot smaller than what I normally would have expected. So minor gripes, but as a whole, it's actually been really, really wonderful. So anyways, I'm going to toss you over to Azure Wind. I'd love it if you folks would stay around, give him a shot. Again, I think he's quite talented at XCOM. I think he's probably one of my favorite streamers for that particular game. But I do encourage you guys to to support Lucifer within us, either through a wish list, through a purchase, or just hanging around. If you want to see more of the game, you can check out Wanderbot's channel. I don't know who they are, but they seem to be on the one that I just finished. So if you really wanted to see what the chapel mission is like, you can do that. Anyways, I hope you all have a good evening. We will see you tomorrow for more Lucifer, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. Have a good one.